That's what it is. It's normally in front of me. Oh, wait, I can read it. NFL Pick'em Stretch. I got it right. I'm Josh Engelman. Week 18 in the NFL. This is the final week of the NFL regular season. We've been doing this for a minute now. 18 straight weeks, in fact. So we are here to break down the Pick'em side of this one. Whether that's prize picks, whether that's sleeper, underdog, better, DraftKings pick six. That's what we're here for today. But we've got 4 hours of coverage incoming. Greg will be here after me at 9:30 to build out some lineups in the single lineup sim. You'll get Laffy and Ben closing out their regular season of their NFL deeper dive. They'll go through every single game on the slate. And then you get live before lock all the way till 1 o'clock. Where else would you rather be? Plus, Liverpool gets to take on Manchester United today. And I know that's what everybody cares about. Completely across the board, the number one thing that we have. But honestly, we got to build some cards here. We usually started on the prize picks side. I think we went 5-1 last Sunday. I'm pulling it up just to make sure. I would be correct. And the one that we lost is kind of a bummer. So we did go 5-1 on our prize picks card from last Sunday. The only one that we lost, we had less than 160.5 passing yards for Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and he got to 170, which is pretty annoying. Otherwise, we hit them all. And honestly, we didn't even have much of a sweat with it. So congrats to us on a 5-1 from last week. Seems to me that we should go for 6-0 today. And at least from what I saw earlier, we did have a little bit of value in the Pick'em Optimizer for prize picks. And I think we're going to dive into it right now and find out what we actually have. So as I pull it up, we're going to do 2 separate cards for prize picks because it seems like we're going to have enough value. I hope. We're going to do the top 6 plays that we can find. And we're not going to care about sport at all. So if I just head to OddsShopper.com, I pull up the Pick'em Optimizer. All I have to do is click the Generate button. That will take the 6 best plays that we have graded out and put them together. And you can see them on the screen right now. Troy Terry. So we got an NHL play, an EPL play, an 2 NBA plays, 2 NFL plays. But those 6 plays, 20% positive EV. This is an incredible card to start off the day. Not as good as we had last weekend. I believe those numbers were north of 30. But a 20% EV card, all we have to do is click the Bet Now button. It immediately takes us over to Prize Picks. We could drop in whatever you want to put down on it. For this one, going for the old 40 to win 1,000. It's the most fun way to see it show up. That clean 4-digit win. And then I'm going to share that link. Boom. Link in chat. We've already got a prize picks card built. That took us, 30 seconds using this tool. That's how quick it can be. But we're going to run it back. We're going right back to prize picks because I want to find out the 6 best NFL specific plays. And we have more than enough value to do it. We got 2 of those plays out of the gate already. We're going Breece Hall, less than 3 receptions. We're going Raheem Mostert, less than 21.5 rushing yards. Aaron Jones, less than 3 receptions. Jaleel McLaughlin, more than 11.5 yards as his longest rush. Calvin Ridley, less than 4.5 receptions. And then finally, Jimmy Garoppolo, more than 190.5 passing yards. 11% EV. This is what we're putting in Sunday NFL specific. This is the one we're putting in to get that dub. 40 to win 1,000. Let's do it. Like I said, 5-1 last week, and we just barely missed out on it. No reason we can't get that right back today and grab a 6-0. So there's 2 prize picks cards. As fast as we started this show, we've already got 2 of these cards built. And it's not like this stops at any point in the day. Every couple seconds, this is refreshing itself, giving you updates on our EV and our win rates. If more plays get added, this is constantly evolving throughout the day. So maybe you only have one section of the day to do it and you wake up in the morning and you place all these things. That's going to be fine. You're going to have the value just like we have it now. And you could break that up into, 2 pick cards, 3 pick cards, if you have the right amount of value. But we do all those calculations for you. You could bounce between flex plays and power plays to see if we're still projecting positive EV. For example, if you just want to do a power play of the top 2 plays, which is Breece Hall and Raheem Mostert, that's a negative 7% EV. That's how bad the payout structures are for some of these. And that's why I like to go immediately to the 6 pick cards, because I need my lowest possible break even. It's going to stretch out my wins a little bit. Not going to hit 6-0 as frequently. But even the 2 best plays that we have available are a negative 7% EV if you only want to take 2. So you got to be aware of the way that that builds out. All righty. Next one up is Underdog. I'm going to head to Underdog quickly to see if we have any boosts or bonuses. Are they doing anything fun for the final weekend of the NFL regular season, at least? Can we get a 20% boost? Okay, so I do have a boost on my Underdog account. However, I'm not confident we're going to have enough to do it. It's 50% profit boost, FIFA only. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say that we don't have enough soccer plays to get this done. But if you are a fan of, if you're a soccer fan and you have some plays that you want to use on Underdog, at least I have a 50% profit boost. If you guys have that, don't try to use it, or don't be afraid to try and use it. Those are the words that I was looking for. But we can still build an Underdog card. It is not going to be NFL specific, at least best that I can tell. Jordan, if you do me one favor on that left-hand side, can you switch power to flex? So a 5-pick card on Underdog right now is going to be a 5% EV. That's good enough for me. That's good enough for me. So we're going to get Steph Curry, less than 25.5 points. I can't think of a single play I would want to sweat more than an under on Steph Curry's points. We're going to get that Raheem Mostert, less than 21.5 total rushing yards. So Mostert looking like he's going to be important to us. Miles Rice, under 14.5 points, allegedly plays for the Indiana Hoosiers. Ooh, that line does not exist anymore. So I'm going to pull Rice. And we're going to add Cason Wallace, less than 7.5 points. Still a 3% ROI, so we'll take it. We've got Domantas Sabonis, under 6.5 assists. Quinn Ewers, under 1.5 passing TDs. And that won't go off until Friday of this week, so that'll be interesting. And then we get to Cason Wallace, under 7.5 points. We get 10x our money if we go 5-0. We get 2.5x our money if we go 4-1. But the good news is, boom, link is dropped in here right now. Next one up. Now, I saw a ton of value on Sleeper before we got this show started. I'm hoping it's still here, because this looked like a massive, oh my God, we have a massive Sleeper card to build right now, guys. Now, unfortunately, we cannot share links for Sleeper. They just don't have them. Or if they do, I've never been able to figure out how to do that. But we are going to place this because we have 3 plays, 11.4% EV, 9.6% EV, and 7.7. A 5-pick card is 35x. 35% EV. So we're going lock it. Less than 2.5 receptions. Wait, is that a... I thought it was some sort of boosted play, but I actually don't think that it is. We've got Cole Kmet, less than 2.5 receptions. We've got Alan Lazard, Say it with me now, guys. Less than 2.5 receptions. "9% does not seem very favorable to me." Well, Sean, you would be incorrect. That is a staggeringly high number. About as high as you're ever going to see it. I mean, 1% is very favorable. So 9% is that much more favorable. Will Dissly, under 3.5 receptions. Much better line here for Dissly. And then finally, Austin Reeves. We go to the NBA side of this one for our final play. And that's Austin Reeves under 6.5 rebounds. I'm excited to see this card play out, given how big that EV number is. So we get Austin Reeves. I'm scrolling for this. Where the hell is the rebounds number? Tell me this is gone. I do not see this 5.5 rebound number for Austin Reeves right now. So we're going to drop Austin Reeves. And we're going to pull back in Wan'Dale Robinson. Actually, yeah, I guess that's what we'll go with. We'll go Wan'Dale. So we'll go back to the NFL side. And that is over 3.5 receptions. So slightly different vibes than what we were getting before. Now, this isn't the biggest payout in the world, but the likelihood of picking up the dub here is quite high. We're getting 4. I know this is 5 plays, but a lot of these are quite likely to win. You can see the odds on some of them. -222, -233. So we're piecing together pretty favorable lines, but we're still getting aggressive positive EV. These lines aren't correct. So we're getting a little over 4x for a 5-1. We still get 1.3x if we go 4-1. Let's get that one locked and loaded. But you guys can see the plays on the screen. The final, well, not final, but the next site that we're going to be hitting here is going to be better. Now, normally I see a lot of good value here. Today is slightly different. Am I crazy? Nothing's showing up here for better? What did they do? What'd they do? Where's the better value at? So no value here on better for today. That's kind of a bummer. They're usually like a guarantee for us finding like a pretty profitable card. So that's kind of sad. Wonder if we have to take a look and make sure if we need to refresh anything here, because they are pretty regularly putting out something awesome. Now, I know somebody said it earlier, and we're going to take a look at it right now. Let's knock out a touchdown parlay. I'm going to run over to DraftKings and see what kind of promos they have on DraftKings Sportsbook. So they have the NFL all parlay profit boost. We've got the touchdown all parlay profit boost. That feels like what we want for today. Well, Chris, that's not what this show is for, but you know, I can understand not understanding that. Breland, I'll take NFL. We didn't have anything, unfortunately. But we can build a touchdown parlay. And that'll be pretty fun. Now, just out of the curiosity, do we have any value using the parlay builder for any touchdown plays on DraftKings right now? Because I'd be happy to start there. I'm not assuming we do, but I'll be happy to start there if I can. Yeah, nothing there. So chat, hit me with the goods here. Who do we like? Who do we like here? Who's scoring a tutty today? And if we can, keep it to the 1 o'clock games. And I'm guessing we can't take anything over -2,000, so no gimmies if they exist today. Yeah, okay. Or, sorry, -200 rather. All right, so Spidey Bombs wants to go Mike Evans right out of the gate. I get it. I get it. -170. All right, Bears Packers. We can kind of go in order if we want to here. Josh Jacobs sitting at -130. Reed sitting at plus 165. I mean, Swift is sitting there at plus 205. What else are we getting here from chat? Hopkins, Nico Collins, MVS, Jacobs, Bucky, Brian Thomas, Josh Downs. That's two Thomases quickly. What's the line on Thomas? Plus 105. Okay. That's enough Thomases that I'm interested. Wentz. I don't know if I could click that one. It's fun though, Jordan. So we've got Mike Evans in, we've got Brian Thomas in. We need at least two more. And I'm hoping somebody else doubles up on one. Where's the consensus? Alan Nagel comes in with Charbonnet. Ryan comes in with Johnny Wilson at plus 320. Ryan, what's your lean there? Because that's off the beaten path, Ryan. Why are you going that direction? Hit me with it. Gainwell, Neighbors, Tracy, Bijan. I'm intrigued by this Johnny Wilson play, Ryan, but I just want to know why you're looking at it. Drake London. You guys just keep naming individuals. Nobody's doubling up on anything. None of y'all have the same sort of confidence. Ryan, I'll take it. Johnny Wilson's going in as more of a long shot. I need something that's a little bit less long shotty. Let's scroll through some of this. Terry McLaurin sitting at minus 105. Bijan can't go in this, by the way, to whoever said that. Okay, that could be two Carters. It's a couple Dotsons as well. Carter's at 135. Dotson's at 295. Yeah, we're not going Dotson. We're going Michael Carter at plus 135. That four-legger with the profit boost gets us a 25% profit boost. That's 39 to 1 to hit these. Israel, no. You're not allowed to have anything better than minus 200 in the profit boost. And Bijan's odds are better than that. But we're getting 39 to 1 on Mike Evans, Brian Thomas, Johnny Wilson, and Michael Carter. Now, I can't place this until the moment I get out of this show. I mean, I guess technically I can if I put it in on my phone, which in hindsight I should have done before this. Because I can't, you can't validate your location on the sports books when you have Zoom open. It would be really cool if my bet card transferred over from my phone to, or from my computer to my phone, but it does not do that, unfortunately. So I will place that the moment we get out of here, but I have it up right now. Again, Evans at minus 170, Brian Thomas at plus 105, Johnny Wilson at plus 320, Michael Carter at plus 135, and we get the 25% boost onto this bad boy. So that's what we're staring at for today. 4-pick anytime TD card. I'm going to take one last quick look to see if the Pick'em Optimizer has anything for better, and it refreshed itself. It does not, unfortunately. So again, two things that you guys should be doing, and it could be in either direction. If it's DFS, I've got one option for you guys. If it's sportsbooks and pick'em sites, I've got another option. Those links are in the description of this video. You click that link, you could get our sim tools on the DFS side for no cost by signing up through one of our partners. Or you could get our entire NFL package for $179 using the promo code CELEBRATE. Basically, you're going to be able to do the same thing either direction. Sign up at one of the partners, get a month of our sims. Sign up at one of the partners and get a month of OddsShopper and the Portfolio EV tool. So you could do the exact same thing we're doing. We take a market-based approach to beating the books and the pick'em sites. You can set up your own portfolio, get notifications on your phone every single time a bet that you want shows up. Click that button immediately to your sportsbook, quickly add your wager, you're done. It's that fast. The tool's outstanding. I couldn't love it anymore. If you're interested in coming in behind the paywall, I think you should do that. And the link is in the description of this video. But now is the perfect time for you guys to get ready for the real main event of today. You guys get to talk about this final regular season slate. Greg is coming up next right now to break everything down and build lineups for a half hour. And then there's 3 more hours after that, covering every single angle you could imagine. I hope you guys had a great NFL regular season. It's been fun being here every single morning. Enjoy it, guys, because I might be talking NBA next week. I'm not entirely sure. But for today, I'm done. And we've got a 6-0 prize picks card incoming. I'll talk to you later.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the final week of the NFL regular season. This show not going to be going anywhere come the playoffs, but this is going to be the final regular season slate. So if you guys could do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Of course, if you want to sign up for any of the tools here at Stokastic or over at OddsShopper as well, we've got our link join deal for any of our affiliate partners that you guys sign up for. You get 1 free month of core access, or you get a free month of OddsShopper for each one of those books that you go and sign up for. Just make sure you use the link down below in the YouTube description box. That is very important for tracking purposes. But yeah, see right away, sloppy steaks, no robe today. Now, I was very undecided on my wardrobe. It's in the high 20s today, so thought I could get by with, got this flannel on and a long sleeve shirt underneath, but it's good. I'm feeling pretty warm. Got the space heater going behind me, and we've got some value on the slate to talk about as well. Do me a favor, guys, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you got any questions for me, same deal as we've done the entire year. If there are any super chats with people wanting me to evaluate any of your lineups or answer any questions you have, you can leave those. If you're in our Discord channel, hit me up, tag me, and I'll be looking out for any of those messages that come across. But first, our player projections for the slate. And yeah, some of the top projected players and some of the chalk, it's going to be different guys than we're used to seeing, but that's what happens at this time of the season. Only a handful of teams with something to play for. There's a lot of key players resting. And I actually think that I like this slate a good amount. I like it a lot more than I thought I was going to earlier in the week. I was building some initial lineups in the Sims, and I was getting pretty excited about it. I think there's good edges to be had. Let's start by looking at the top projected quarterbacks, which I see Jordan's already got here on the screen. And 3 QBs project for north of 20 fantasy points this week. You got Jaden Daniels. We do have Washington jockeying for seating position. You've got Kyler Murray, who, even though this game doesn't mean anything for the Arizona Cardinals, they are going to be playing against a banged up version of the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, look at the quarterback situation in San Francisco. And then in addition to that, I mean, some of these teams like the Cardinals haven't had anything to play for a couple of weeks now. So we do still expect them to be going out there full go. So Kyler Murray, he's fairly cheap. He is somebody who's projecting well, also going to be very popular this week. And then finally, Baker Mayfield. If you guys remember from last week, Baker Mayfield, we built some onslaught stacks of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that ended up going pretty well for a bunch of those lineups. And now we've got another time this week where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, pretty simple for them. They win today, they're in the playoffs. They're playing against the backups from the Saints. This is a game kind of similar to last week where I think it's going to make some sense to have Baker Mayfield, Tampa Bay Buccaneers onslaught stacks. That is not going to be anything that surprises the field in any kind of way. The next best projected running back, it is Bo Nix at $6,400. Another team, something to play for against the team that's going to be playing their backups in the Kansas City Chiefs. Bo Nix, same deal. Broncos win, and they're in the playoffs. So Broncos, that's a team that has incentive to go and be playing their starters for the entire game. And now sort by the ownership projection, Jordan. You guys will see one really popular quarterback on the slate. It is Kyler Murray at $6,000. We've got Josh Dobbs on the other side of the game. He's going to be starting for the 49ers today. He is projected for 10.74% ownership, really due to a price point thing. Also, Josh Dobbs, he's a competent backup, but $4,000, a reasonable projection on him in a game that is expected to have some scoring in it. That's why he's got the 10.74% ownership projection there. And then you got Baker Mayfield. Obviously, we talked about them having something to play for. Geno Smith. While the Seahawks themselves don't have anything to play for, there is a lot of incentives in Geno Smith's contract that would incentivize him to want to play the entire game and also play reasonably well. So expect him to be prepared for this game. He had multiple millions of dollars in contract incentives for different bonuses, things like passing yards. I think touchdowns is another one. There's a handful of big incentives in Geno Smith's contract. Justin Herbert at $5,600, Michael Penix at $5,400, Bo Nix at $6,400. A lot of these guys, something to play for. Falcons, they needed a win and a Buccaneers loss to get into the playoffs. That's enough that we should be expecting to see the Falcons starters for the entirety of the game. Running back position now, Jordan. All right, and you guys will see here at the running back spot right away. It's 2 running backs with something to play for. Bijan Robinson in a good matchup against the Carolina Panthers. Just hit on that scenario. Falcons win, Buccaneers loss. Falcons make the playoffs. And then Bucky Irving, same deal. Something to play for. Really good matchup against the New Orleans Saints backups at $7,700. He is a strong pay-up option. Those are our top 2 projected running backs. There's a big gap between them and everybody else. Then there's Jonathan Taylor at 18.7 fantasy points. We've got Zach Charbonnet at 16.2. So we've got about 2 fantasy point difference between Robinson and Bucky Irving. Then you got about a 3 fantasy point difference between Bucky Irving and Jonathan Taylor as the next highest projected running back. And then you've got Jonathan Taylor, 2.5 fantasy points different than Zach Charbonnet. So pretty big gap in some of the running back projections. And that is why if you look at the ownership here, you got some massive chalk. Bucky Irving, Bijan Robinson, each projected for nearly 40% ownership. And then you got Michael Carter. He is just over 30% owned. And the situation there, James Conner not going to be playing today. The assumption is that Michael Carter is going to be getting the bulk of the carries. Also, very cheap for him. Last week, we saw James Conner actually unexpectedly start that game. It looked like he wasn't going to be good to go. He played, but then he got hurt just a few plays into the game. And then Michael Carter got the bulk of the playing time after that. So that's why we're expecting him to be playing a big role this week and why he's such a popular running back. Good value spot for sure. Now at wide receiver, you guys will see here at wide receiver, we've got Mike Evans, and a lot has been made about Mike Evans and his contract incentives. I think the line has been inflated in a pretty crazy way. Mike Evans receiving yard prop opened at 88.5, and now it is over 100 yards as people are jamming Mike Evans overs because of those contract incentives. I mean, it's a good spot for him against the New Orleans Saints, but the number one priority for the Buccaneers is going to be winning this game and making it into the playoffs. Mike Evans, top overall wide receiver on the slate. Should he have a wide receiver receiving prop of north of 100 receiving yards? Probably not, but it's enough to, even if it should be, say, like 96 yards or something like that. Clearly, top projected wide receiver on the slate, just under 22 fantasy points. Brian Thomas, Nico Collins, Malik Neighbors. There's your next group of wide receivers around 18 fantasy points, followed by Cortland Sutton and Drake London, each of them with something to play for. Ownership now, if you go and look at the ownership projections, Mike Evans, he's the chalk at 30%. You got Cortland Sutton at 20%, Brian Thomas just under 20%. Then you got Michael Pittman at 17%. I think this is an interesting spot to go back to Josh Downs. Last week, Josh Downs was super popular. Michael Pittman was not. And what ended up happening was Pittman had the big game, and now the field is kind of reversed course, and the field wants to play Michael Pittman. So I think that's kind of an interesting pivot point, considering Josh Downs now is about half the ownership of what Pittman is projected for. So those are the most popular wide receivers. And now finally at tight end. Yeah, so tight end now, we have a couple of pretty highly projected tight ends. And I think this is going to be a slate where Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, very viable options in the flex spot. We've got each of them projected for just under 20 fantasy points. So the only wide receiver that projects better than Bowers and McBride is Mike Evans. Other than that, Bowers, McBride project better than every single other wideout that we have in our projections. So Brian Thomas, if you guys remember, he was just under 19 fantasy points as our second best projected wide receiver. McBride, as well as Bowers, both over a 19 fantasy point projection. Nobody else projecting extremely well as far as raw fantasy points at tight end. George Kittle, Jake Ferguson, the only two ones with a projection north of 10 fantasy points. And that's why if you look at the ownership projection at tight end, McBride is popular, Bowers is popular, nobody else is. Each of these guys are around 30% owned. The next highest owned tight end, it's Zach Ertz at 6%. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and start building out some lineups. And I see we've got a super chat here from Nicholas Lynn. He wants us to build, got a suggestion here, a 49er stack with Michael Carter as a bringback. Let's do it. All right, so Josh Dobbs and Michael Carter, we're putting them in to start, Jordan. All right. And then after we have those two in, my favorite overall stacking partner with Josh Dobbs is Juwan Jennings. Really been a breakout season for Jennings. And obviously the injury to Brandon Ayuk, that benefited him from a fantasy standpoint. But then also Deebo Samuel just looking mega wash this year has also been a big benefit, has made, what is the word that I'm looking for here? It has made Juwan Jennings a benefactor in the fantasy department. But Juwan Jennings, my favorite stacking partner with Joshua Dobbs. Let's see, is there anybody else that I want to put in here for a double stack? I mean, you can make a case for George Kittle, but I like the other tight ends to pay up for in Trey McBride and Brock Bowers. I also think this is a pretty good slate to be playing some single stacks and maybe some double stacks. I don't think it's necessary to get to triple stacks just because there's so much points per dollar value. So let's just stick with this. We'll go to the Juwan Jennings single stack with Dobbs and then Michael Carter as the run back per the question here from Nicholas Lynn, or the request. Now at running back, But it is pretty hard to get away from the some of the pay up chalk guys. But if I did want to go away from those guys, Ray Davis in a good matchup against the New England Patriots, I think we could see him in a pretty sizable role with the Bills going with their backups against New England today. So let's go really stars and scrubs, Jordan. Plug Ray Davis in here at $5,200. All right, Ray Davis. And now at wide receiver, we don't have exposure yet to the Tampa Bay offense. So let's go with the chalky Mike Evans here. All right. So since we have Mike Evans in here, let's go and plug in at tight end, or actually in the running back spot for a flex. Go to Bijan Robinson. I think that's a pretty good way to kind of do a tie break between Bucky Irving and Bijan Robinson as a pay-up option. Have Mike Evans in the lineup. Might as well go to Bijan instead. At defense now, but there's a lot of different spots to go to at defense. Some of the ones that are projecting well that show up for me in the Sims, the Bills defense at $3,100 if you're paying up a bit. If you're going to go cheaper, Giants defense at $2,400. I know the Giants defense is dog shit, but these are the Philadelphia Eagles backups. So favorite cheap defense, let's plug in the Giants at 2,400. Also, it would be the most Giants thing ever to suck the entire season and win the last 2 games of the season so that they aren't able to draft a decent quarterback to actually build for the future. Seems like a pretty reasonable situation we could be heading to here. What do we have? Is that 5,700 left, Jordan? All right. Good man. All right. So Trey McBride, Brock Bowers, they're pretty interchangeable to me. Let's just go Trey McBride. I'm going to have very equal exposure to both of them. Probably my tight end exposure, it's going to be something like 40% McBride, 40% Bowers, and then just a mix of other tight ends that work in stacks. That's probably going to be somewhere around where I end up landing today. And now let's see who projects best at wide receiver of all the guys left. Okay, plug in, go to Wan'Dale Robinson. Let's see how this ends up looking. And Mark Bornman chat saying Eagles should let them win and fuck with their draft position. I totally agree. And it's not like they're doing that intentionally or anything. I mean, they're just playing their starters to rest up for the playoffs. And, big thing because Saquon Barkley not playing, not chasing the rushing yard record. If you guys remember at the end of last year, though, the Eagles did play their starters in a fairly meaningless game. Jalen Hurts got hurt, and then he went into the playoffs banged up because he had a finger injury. And A.J. Brown got hurt in that game and wasn't even able to play in the playoffs. So I think that's a big reason why the Eagles are resting guys. They didn't do it last year, and it really, really significantly hurt them in the playoffs. 71.4% sim ROI in this lineup. All right. Pretty solid start. No other questions in the Discord or anything. So let's go to another player to be building around here, Jordan. And we've already got Joshua Dobbs lineup there. And now let's see. Kyler Murray's super popular. We kind of already built that lineup right there. The only real difference would be Kyler Murray instead of Dobbs and finding other places to save a little bit of salary. So let's build a different lineup. Let's go with Geno Smith at quarterback. Go Geno Smith against the Rams. And then let's go with double stack. Let's go DK Metcalf and Jackson Smith and Jigba. I prefer JSN slightly for this slate, but Metcalf has been priced down. He's struggled ever since getting banged up early in the year. He's had a knee injury this year. He's had a shoulder injury. I tend to think those are still lingering. But with that said, how many players are really, truly, totally healthy at this point in the season? So once again, my preference, JSN. But if we're making double stacks, I'm good with both these guys being in the lineup. At running back, Jordan, let's go to Bucky Irving in this lineup. And we'll put Michael Carter in as well. We'll go Bucky Irving in this lineup instead of Mike Evans. We've already got 2 wide receiver spots filled. Go back to the Giants defense at 2,400 as well. All right, now let's find a cheap wide receiver to plug in. Save ourselves some salary since we got sub 5K left. Who's projecting well? All right, so there's a number of punt options we'd be going to at wide receiver. I'll just point out one guy who is showing up in the sims a good amount for me. Remigio from the Kansas City Chiefs, flat 3K. The Chiefs are only going to have a handful of wide receivers available to them today. And even though it's only going to be the backups in the game, somebody is going to have an okay game from the Chiefs when almost the entire team is close to min price here. So just somebody who's at least showing up decently in the sims for right now. It definitely could be a placeholder where other guys who are really cheap end up projecting well later. I mean, I think there's going to be like a dozen of either min price or close to min price wide receivers that are going to be viable options for this slate. This is just the one who shows up the most frequently for me right now. And what does that give us for the final two spots, Jordan? Okay. So let's go Brock Bowers now at 6,600. And that should give us enough space. Oh, no, never mind. We're 100. So go to McBride, and then we could plug in Bijan. We actually need the $100 salary savings there. Yeah, now Bijan should fit perfectly. Yeah, so I think this is how some very decent-looking Seattle Seahawks builds will look for me. This is definitely a kind of construction I'm looking to go with. And yeah, the simmed out really well. 156.8% sim ROI. Seahawks stacks for the win. I definitely think that's going to be a good way to go. And data here just kind of backing that up. Let's go to FanDuel now, Jordan. Built out a couple of those DraftKings lineups. Let me see if there's anything in chat that people were kind of clamoring for in terms of builds. Some people asking about Ricky Pearsall. Yeah, Pearsall is also viable in those 49ers stacks, although I do prefer Jawan Jennings to him. FanDuel side of things now. Okay, so here's the most fun aspect of FanDuel that doesn't exist at all on DraftKings. Arguably the best regular season game that we have had on the schedule for the entire season. We've got the Vikings and the Lions playing for the division tonight. The winner is going to be the winner of the North. The loser is going to be the 5 seed, which seems unreasonably unfair considering how good both these teams have been this year. One of these teams is going to go 14-3 and be the 5 seed in the NFC. It's the Sunday Night Football game, and it is included on the FanDuel slate. This is the best all year that we've had of a FanDuel slate, and no time have been happier that this game has been included. So let's build a stack of Vikings and Lions. I slightly prefer Sam Darnold to Jared Goff, but these also are my two most rostered quarterbacks in the first sim that I ran for FanDuel. But let's go Sam Darnold at $8,100. And one of the reasons that I do like going to Sam Darnold is it's just very clear to me if Sam Darnold has a big game, Justin Jefferson has a big game. It's just really unfathomable if there's going to be a scenario where Darnold goes for like 300 plus yards and Justin Jefferson shits the bed. And there's so much value that it's easy enough to spend up to Justin Jefferson. That's what has me preferring the Vikings side of the game. If Jared Goff has a big game, yeah, like Amon-Ra St. Brown could have a big game. Jahmyr Gibbs could have a big game. Laporta could have a big game. There's just so many weapons in the Lions offense, whereas the Vikings, it's a little bit more condensed. So let's go Sam Darnold to Justin Jefferson. We could also go Jordan Addison, but I'll just leave this as a single stack for now. But let's run it back with Jahmyr Gibbs at $8,800. All right. So now we've got a number of expensive players in this lineup. We've got Gibbs, we've got Jefferson, and Darnold, who's also $8,100. So let's plug in, once again, Giants defense, only $3,200 here. Super cheap. Actually, they might even be... No, Panthers are $3,100. So the Giants are the second cheapest defense of everything available on FanDuel. So Giants are $3,200. That'll help us save some salary. At the running back position now, somebody we didn't plug into any of the DraftKings lineups who I like is a little bit of a lower owned option for this slate. Blake Corum at $5,500. Kyron Williams going to be resting today. And I think we're going to see a pretty sizable role for Blake Corum. He makes sense as a run back in Seattle lineups, but also just a standalone, somewhat contrarian running back option. I like him on FanDuel and DraftKings, and we need to go cheap here considering the other guys we plugged in. So go Blake Corum at $5,500. Okay. And now we've got 2 wide receiver spots to fill, a tight end spot, and a defense spot. Wide receiver. All right. Probably going to have to be somewhere in like the 6K range here. We've got Michael Pittman is 6,200. We've got Josh Downs at 6K. Let's go Josh Downs as the leverage option here off of Pittman. We've got Josh Downs about actually, Josh Downs and Michael Pittman are pulling the same ownership on FanDuel, whereas on DraftKings, Pittman's quite a bit more popular. Interesting. I've just kind of made an assumption about the ownership here, but yeah, Downs is 9% owned, Pittman 10.5% owned. So actually much more similar on FanDuel than they are on DraftKings. Let's see. Go to a tight end now, Jordan, just because I know we're going to be playing. Oh, actually, TJ Hawkinson is also in play as well as Sam Laporta over on FanDuel. So when I'm looking at my lineups, I only have 4 across my top 150 lineups run through the Sims. I only got exposure to 4 tight ends: Trey McBride, Brock Bowers, TJ Hawkinson, Sam Laporta. So Hawkinson and Laporta are added to the mix over on FanDuel. Let's go Hawkinson to make this a double stack. And that'll also help us save a little bit of salary. We could always go back and make that spot a little bit more expensive with McBride or Bowers and pay up if we have extra salary at the end. What's that number on the screen now, Jordan? For salary? Okay, 65. So at 65, plug in Calvin Ridley at 6,200. And then we'll see who projects best for the flex. Ray Davis? All right, that works. How much salary is that leaving on the table? 600. Probably more than I would want to leave on the table. Let's see. Can we upgrade? Is there somebody we could upgrade Calvin Ridley to? Who's second at wide receiver? All right, go to Jennings instead. Yeah, that'll zero out the salary. From the chat, some people saying Sutton there. Big Hubs, e-bike channel asking anybody on Miles Sanders. Yeah, Miles Sanders, he's actually showing up in a decent amount of lineups for me in the Sims as a punt option here. This ended up coming out good, 158.5% Sim ROI. So another good-looking lineup here. We've got a lineup here from Vito Power. And let's see, Vito Power, Dobbs, Robinson, Bucky. Okay, I think this is a DraftKings lineup. If it's not, we'll plug it in for FanDuel, but this looks like a DraftKings lineup, Jordan. So plug these guys in. We've got Joshua Dobbs at quarterback. Then it is Bijan Robinson and Bucky Irving, going with both of them at running back. No issue playing both of the chalk running backs in the same lineup. Haven't done it yet, but it's just been because we spent up at some wide receiver spots. And Vito Power following up that it is a DK lineup. All right. Neighbors, Cooks, Jennings. Then we got Zach Ertz, Michael Carter, Packers D. What's the price point on the Packers? Okay. All right. We might be able to make this better by going cheaper at defense. We'll see what it looks. If it sims out fine, then it sims out fine. Won't change anything. If we need to, I think the easiest swap to make is just going to be saving money at defense and then upgrading one of the other spots. 7.2% Samurai. Okay, not terrible, but it can be improved on. So let's do what I said there, Jordan. Change out the Packers defense for the Giants defense. Okay, and now let's see what's. Yeah, so let's see. Who do we want to upgrade? The wide receivers were Neighbors, Cooks. Okay, let's take Cooks out. What wide receiver projects the best? Okay. Plug in Pittman. All right. Just run it as is. I have a feeling this is going to make the lineup look a lot better. There are other ways you could zero out the salary and really optimize it. But with that said, I think just this simple swap here should make the lineup sim out better. Yeah. Easy change. There isn't that much need. There's really no need to spend up at defense for this slate, just because there are so many crappy defenses for the season, but they're playing against teams that are resting their starters. So like the Giants, for instance, $2,400, but they're playing against the Eagles backup. You've got the let's see, who are some of the other ones on the slate? Not quite as cheap as the Giants, but still, you've got other defense too. Like the Seahawks are $2,900 against the Rams backups. You've got the Cardinals at $2,700 against 49ers backups. You got the Broncos at 3K, although that actually has been a good defense this year, at 3K against the Chiefs backups. I don't really have that much interest in spending up at defense. Obviously, if one of the expensive defenses goes out and scores, a touchdown and has a handful of turnovers and a shutout or something like that, then I'll end up getting screwed for the slate. But I think that the much more reasonable way to go is going to be going to some of these cheap defenses. So let's go over to FanDuel and build out one final lineup in the last few minutes. We built one lineup already that was built on the Sunday night game. So now let's build a FanDuel lineup. We'll do this one quick because we only got about a minute and a half left to go. So speed lineup here. Let's go with a Kyler Murray FanDuel lineup. We haven't built a Kyler Murray lineup yet. So go Kyler Murray, and we'll have Michael Carter and Trey McBride in the lineup. Plug in Jawan Jennings as a run back. Jennings at $6,800 on FanDuel. Now for the other running back spot, just as people have been asking about him, go to Miles Sanders. He's only 4K. I do think he's a viable option on both FanDuel and DraftKings, and he's been getting a lot of chatter in the YouTube chat. So let's add him in and see how a lineup sims out with him. And now we've got a bunch of money remaining here. So let's go Justin Jefferson at 9,500. And still a lot of money to play with here. Let's go Mike Evans at 8,900. And now Cool. And now who projects best at flex? All right, plug him in. Super quick lineup we threw together, but we're kind of short on time here. Deep dive, that is going to be coming up next with Ben Raza and Lofty, and then there's going to be Live Before Lock with Eric Lindquist and Matt Gajewski. If you guys haven't done it yet, do me a favor, like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And yeah, this lineup, once again, we left some salary on the table, so we could have played around with it to make it a little bit better. But you guys get the idea, kind of the framework of a Kyler Murray stack that would look good over for FanDuel. And then one final question here before we head out. James Magruder wants to know best $4,900 or under wide receiver for single entry. Yeah, let's see. If I had to pick one at $4,900, let's see who's priced around there. $4,900 or cheaper. Wan'Dale Robinson at $4,600. That would be the guy that I am most apt to be going to. Got Wan'Dale Robinson going up against the Eagles backups. The game doesn't matter for the Giants, but guess what? The Giants haven't had a meaningful game in, well, probably multiple years. But for this year, it's been since like week 3 or week 4 since the Giants, it was pretty clear they weren't going to be a player this year. Other than that, guys, thank you very much for watching. If you haven't done it, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Deep dive is next, then Live Before Lock. Stick around for the next few hours. Good luck. Have a great day.
Let's do it. Hey, good morning. Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL Deeper Dive Week 18. A bittersweet moment, but a crazy week. Glad you're here. You're going to need to be here. I'm telling you, this is the craziest slate of the week, hands down, or of the season, hands down. There's just no doubt about it. I said to Ben on Tuesday, I like it. I think there's some good, nice little wrinkles, some intricacies in here that if we can unearth some of this, we're going to be in okay shape. I mean, look, I say that now, Ben, but with a slate this crazy, I'd probably hit you up around 2:30 Eastern time and go, actually, that may be late.
What are you talking about?
I mean,
if you hit me up at 2:30, that just means, hey, I just got home. I was out for 85 minutes and I missed. Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like I look at this slate and I think there's some really good spots to target here. Does that materialize? I don't know. You've got some teams resting starters. My assumption is it'll be a lot of starters, Philly being one of them, Buffalo, another spot where it's like they'll start. I wouldn't be surprised if Allen plays one single snap in this game just to keep his, consecutive start streak alive. We already know what Andy Reid intends on doing. We've seen what he's done in week 18s in the past, week 17s resting players. Sean McVay doesn't care about the 3 or 4 seed. So there's that. And then you've got a team like the Chargers, who now that the Steelers lost, they can sew up that 5 seed and then face Houston instead of having to face the Ravens in Baltimore. So they do, in fact, have something to play for. That's pretty much the landscape of this. We can get into the weeds more with like Will Levis, Mason Rudolph, what D'Amico Ryans is doing with Houston. But those are the big spots here for today.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward in the sense of I think we can project what teams probably want to do. And then with personnel, I think it gets a little murkier. And, we didn't really see it yesterday, which I was a little surprised about, but I was particularly with Baltimore, it was like, okay, they're going to try, they need the game, but realistically in the third quarter, in the fourth quarter, are we going to see Lamar? And we in fact did. Him and Henry were playing late in the game, which I was a little surprised.
They didn't get up enough in the first half.
I mean, they didn't, but it was also just like, is Cleveland really gonna
right.
Whatever, it doesn't matter. Hopefully, I don't know exactly what happened to Flowers. Hopefully it's nothing super serious, but that notwithstanding, I think we have a pretty good idea today. It's a slate, I'll say this, to be positive for a change. There's going to be a lot of people in your tournaments that are drawing dead because they're not paying attention, and that is huge. So you're going to have tournaments with reduced rake or just teams that legitimately have no chance, and if you avoid those, that's a win in itself. So we're going to do that today, and then we're going to spin the wheel.
Yeah, we are. Aaron Davis said the field is smart. No one will be that big of a surprise, but you have to cover where you think you can. Yeah, I don't disagree. I think the dead lineups don't come from people playing guys with an O next to their name. What I expect is people playing guys who are, in fact, active, but their roles are reduced, or things are just, or they're totally missing out on guys who have massively elevated roles. I think that's where the edge comes from today.
Definitely, I think like Josh Allen will be. Not a great example of that because it's pretty well known, but when you look at your tournaments, particularly if you're playing lower dollar stuff, be a couple % owned, I bet. And that's just like basically drawing dead. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. I think there are little edges to have. Set an over under on likes. I'll set it at 535. I will say 697.5.
697. What are we at now? 174.
Yeah, it's a lack. Listen, it's week 18. I think people are a little, fatigue, but we still got the ride or dies are in here. I think we'll get to just short of 700.
All right, give me 703.5.
What did you just like prices, right, May?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
I guess that'd be the opposite of that.
I don't.
Wouldn't like Price is Right if you go over. Oh yeah, never mind.
No.
You're right. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like you're right. I don't watch those shows, man.
Neither do I.
Happy to have you with us. Hey, if you guys don't mind, take a single second this morning. It's Sunday. Atone for your sins. You know the drill here. Hit that thumbs up if you don't mind. It goes a long way. Helps us feed the algorithm. Keeps us alive in these competitive streets in the DFS and betting world. So if you haven't done so, all it is, just 1 second, a click, a tap, whatever it may be. and subscribe to the channel. That's 100% free to do so, and we'll gladly refund your misery if you feel that you've made a terrible mistake in hindsight. Just click unsubscribe. Anyway, time to get into this one. But yeah, I think we'll get north of 700. We got good people around here. And plus, you get anyone that's watching around this time of year, it's still, I mean, I'm going through it. You know, we're going through the Super Bowl, no questions asked every single year. But anyone that's still here, you know, they're gonna show some love. Plan B Smoothies, 3 years of Laffy's birthdays. Here's the 3 more. Thanks, brother. Not my birthday, but also thank you as always. All right, so Jordan, do me a favor. Let me know which of those super chats from above came in on this show or came in on the show previous that were already answered. I know that Brandon Wagner was new due to roster construction. If you can only pick one, you're playing Bucky or Evans. If you can only pick one, I'd play Bucky Irving, but you can play both. Tampa's going to be a popular team for good reason. 14.5-point home favorites, win and you're in. The only way either Atlanta or Tampa can make the postseason is by winning their division. I'd actually go Bucky. I would assume a lot of people would go Mike Evans here, but they're also probably got their minds tied up in the incentives as well. And I like Mike Evans a lot, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Mike Evans is a great play. I would go Bucky as well, and it's mostly because to me, the top of the wide receiver range is a little more deep and there are more pivots, whereas I don't love a lot of the, we'll get to Bijan. I really like him, but yeah, you have 2 great options there. The Tampa stack is going to be it's the first game. Massive favorite. And we're talking about it right now. Tampa's going to be one of the most popular teams on the slate because everybody knows they have to win.
Yep. Yeah, they do. And thanks, Dan. That's awesome, man. Glad to hear it. And good luck to you, dude. Hit me up. DMs are always open. Always happy to help with that shit. All right, you ready? Man, that sidebar looks small with all these games.
I know. A lot of names.
Let's do it. We're already north of 300, by the way. We'll make this happen. The masses will start flowing in momentarily, and it'll shock the world. Saints and the Tampa Bay Bucs, 14.5-point spread here, 45.5-point total. Surprise, surprise, Olave's not back. Derek Carr is not going to play. Kamara's doubtful, but we can just rule him out, correct? We can say Alvin Kamara and Kendre Miller are not playing today.
Yeah, the Saints have once again a skeleton crew. Even Jawan Johnson's now has got a Q tag. Yeah. I hope he plays because I wanted to target him, but it's bad. It's a bad situation in New Orleans.
What would you go to Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the question. You knew I was going to ask this question because we have to ask it. He's basically minimum salary.
I know, but there's just there are so many other potential value spots out there. I have no desire to go to a team that is just brutal team total. There's still multiple backs that they could, I guess, get work. I'm not convinced that he has a huge role, even though by default he's going to have some role. I don't want much, if anything, to do with New Orleans. The tight end position's kind of interesting.
Yeah, there are certain teams that I don't want to say I'm just fully writing off, but there's so much value elsewhere in other spots where there were plenty of weeks recently even where you and I were like, well, I guess we have to consider like an MVS or you have to consider. I don't really know if you need to do that this week. So normally the Saints, tell me last week on an 8 game or even before that, an 11 game or something, the Clyde Edwards-Helaire in this exact situation wouldn't be relatively popular.
No doubt. Again, that just speaks to there's 13 games. There's a boatload of value out there. I just don't see any need to force in an unknown. I don't think it's clear at all what the Saints give you. And so for me, you're going to see Bucs in the lineups. You're not going to see Saints in the lineups outside of Moreau or Jawan Johnson for me.
Corey Bomber, why is the Jets game at 4:25? That's weird. It's because the Denver Broncos and Miami Dolphins, there's playoff implications. So you can't put those games at different times. It's just, if the Dolphins were first, I mean, granted, the whole Bengals situation would muddy the waters with that, but yeah, you don't want to do that. You put them both at the same time because if the Broncos were to lose and the Dolphins were to win, the Dolphins get in. If the Dolphins lose and Broncos lose, the Bengals get in. If the Broncos just win or tie, they get in. So yeah, there's that. All right. Captain America bleeds. Unpopular take in my opinion, but you got to play unknowns for a takedown today. It is what it is. I will have some. I'll have a few guys. I have one guy I'm going to throw at you that you're going to say, who is that? You might know. I know Matt Gajeski would know, but
well, I'll be excited to do that because I'll be honest, because I know I watched a lot of college football. The Browns used multiple players yesterday that I swear I have genuinely, I know I joke around about that of like, didn't know he was on the team. They had guys out in the field yesterday that I actually didn't know.
Do you know who Nico Remigio is?
No.
From Fresno State.
No, still, that's not sweetening the deal. No.
No, that's not.
No. Who the hell is that?
We'll talk about it.
Okay.
All right. On the other side, though, with the Bucs, I mean, pick your poison here. Bucky Irving looks great. Mike Evans, Baker Mayfield. Really, truthfully, the only downside here, like the only drawback is that there's no chance this team isn't popular when they're one of a handful of teams that have legitimate playoff implications. Now, Atlanta, in all likelihood, they're not making the playoffs, right? Because they need to win and they need the Bucs but they still have to play these guys 4 quarters. So that's a spot that's important. Washington, Dan Quinn doesn't want the 7 seed, doesn't want to travel to Philly to take on the Eagles. He's going to play his guys. Matt LaFleur says the same. But if Washington's up by 20 at halftime, does LaFleur just sit his guys? Because they're jockeying for the 6 and 7. Jacksonville, Indy means nothing. Buffalo, New England means nothing. Giants, Philly means nothing. I expect the Giants, because they fell out of the top spot anyway, I expect them still to play their starters. Saints, Bucs, we talked about that. Houston, Tennessee means nothing. San Francisco, Arizona. So then, yeah, you have Denver, and then Seattle wants to win, but it doesn't mean anything. Chargers can get a win and move up, and then Miami can get the playoffs. Everything else is just guys playing because they have to play the season out.
There's going to be a lot of that today. And that's where my unknowns are more likely to come from, is just a team that's kind of out. The Saints, to me, don't fit that mold. So this game, like I said, you can't go wrong with Tampa. You mentioned the biggest knock is that the Baker stack or even any of these main weapons are going to be very, very popular. It's an easy way to spend the money. They check every box. I'm going to be like most. I'm going to have Tampa scattered throughout lineups, and then I'm going to try to get some Baker as well.
It's really just the only spot. The only drawback is their popularity.
Yeah.
So do you just jam them anyway?
I mean, I don't know about that. I mean, it's all relative to exactly, how much leverage you want. And with guys like Bucky Irving, you're not going to be able to take 25% and get it. You'll be under. There's no doubt about it. So, yeah, I want a healthy amount of them. I think for me, if I had to rank them, and again, these are all good options, Bucky would be a priority 1. Evans would be priority 2. The Bucs stack itself would be my 3rd priority. It's not that I don't like it.
So like Jalen McMillan, Payne Durham, those guys.
And Baker.
Baker too, yeah. Yeah, Bucky's my number 1 right now in these spots. Mike Evans, I mean, it's 1 and 1A for sure. Bucky's really popular for a 13-game slate. McMillan's fine. He's just in a weird zone because you might be able to pay down for some good receivers today as well. But yeah, Payne Durham I think is fine as well. And you know what? I don't even think the onslaught Tampa stacks are going to be all that unpopular either. Just throwing it out there. Like I think if people are like, well, I'm going to get away from the field by going, a Tampa +3 here instead of +2, I don't think that's going to be all that unusual.
No, not at all. Again, I think in these slates, it's only natural. Most people, they want to roster things that they're comfortable with. That's always like a priority. And there is no team on the slate that has a more direct, motivation than Tampa. Everyone knows it. Everyone sees the spread. They've been playing amazing. Baker's been awesome. You're going to see onslaughts. Max number of Bucs you can have in a lineup. I think you will see, Baker +4s out there. I think that's probably a little much, but Baker +3, definitely, depending on the contest and whatnot, you can easily do that.
Joshua asks, since the Steelers won, do we expect the Chargers to play their starters?
Steelers
Small
lost.
problem. Steelers lost. So, yeah. I said this in the betting video on Tuesday, that you're going to see this line move for the Chargers if the Steelers lose, and it moved from 4.5 to 7. So, yeah, Chargers. Look, I don't care if you're a coach like Sean McVay and you don't care about seeding, but dude, you can't tell me, Ben. I don't believe anyone out there that would say they'd rather play the Ravens in Baltimore than Houston or than the Texans in Houston. Just not a single coach out there.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the Chargers honestly are in the bucket of the teams that are in like must win. That is
Yes.
Even if they were fighting for their playoffs, I don't think their mentality would change. You going to Baltimore versus going to Houston is as drastic of difference as you could have. So yes, it's all hands on deck for the Chargers.
I'm not saying the Texans can't win in the playoffs, but they're the weakest team coming into the postseason right now.
I mean, the Steelers, but yeah, they're down there.
Yeah.
The Steelers shouldn't even make it. They should just change the rules and put
But as
Cincinnati
far as
in.
playoffs go, like I would still, if you told me like neutral field Steelers Texans, I'd still take the Steelers.
Well, we're gonna find out what some of these teams, but yeah.
But they're both limping into the playoffs. For what it's worth, the Steelers' last 4 games are the Eagles, Ravens, Chiefs, and desperate Bengals. That's a gauntlet right there. That's brutal.
Awful. I think I bet them in all of them. It feels like, but
well, if you bet them at 2.5 yesterday, you would have won. So Steelers covered that final line.
Yeah, thanks to field goals. Lot of field goals.
Bears and Packers. The Bears are actually one of the teams I don't really have much interest in today. Matt LaFleur says he's going to play his starters, and I'll take his word for it. I think they'd still rather finish 6th and face either they're going to face probably the Bucs. And you still don't want to be traveling to Philly to face the 2 seed. The Bears, if you wanted to go Swift or whoever, but man, after that last game against the Seahawks, who clearly came out flat because they knew that game, basically their fate was sealed based on a Rams win. Looking at that game where even the Seahawks gave them every opportunity, dude, Caleb Williams was terrible. Now, for you Bears fans in chat, here's your chance. You can talk about coaching. You can talk about the offensive line. The floor is yours as I continue to speak. But Caleb Williams was still terrible. Okay. He was 0 for 5 on deep attempts. His yards per attempt was like 4.5 yards. Yes, he was pressured 55% of the time. He was sacked a ton. But how do you place any faith in that offense right now? They're just terrible.
Yeah, this is a game, we got 13 of them, so I feel pretty good saying this. This is a game that I'm basically skipping. I don't like the Bears in this spot at all. And of the teams that are like, I think the Packers might be the number 1 team that in the game, their motivation might change. And I worry about that. Like, I'm not saying they're not going to play their starters, but I do think there are unquantifiable variables where you might not get ceiling equity from them. And it's a 13-game slate. You're going to need that. So I didn't love it to begin with, and I really don't like it now. This game is a throwaway for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a throwaway for me. And the only guy I'd consider is Jacobs. But when you've got Bijan, and you know what? Bucky, and even Jonathan Taylor, you say what you want about the Colts, but at least you can. I'm still pretty confident that Jonathan Taylor and these guys finish out the season playing 4 quarters.
Yeah, and Josh Jacobs, they have, limited him a little bit in these last couple of games. I go to Minnesota not, but against New Orleans, they didn't use him in the second half because they didn't need to. I wouldn't be stunned if you see him not have. I just don't see the need to put. He's going to be busy next week, let me tell you. So for me, the Packers are just an unnecessary risk on a slate this big.
Would you say the same thing even if Watson and Dobbs are both out?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's obviously closer because then you start to say, okay, like maybe I pay down to like a Wicks or something, and I get that. But honestly, they still have, okay, so then just Malik Heath gets 4 targets and things like that, and it doesn't really change that much in my mind.
Right. It doesn't. Yeah. They don't concentrate targets around the singular player enough regardless.
They just bring in new players. That's what I mean. Like Bo Melton will now have the role
you're right.
that.
You're absolutely right. For all we know, like Musgrave sees a bigger role too. And yeah, it's ugly. Both sides of this game. If it's anyone, I guess you could consider Swift, but I'm good there. There's just too much value at running back. Pretty much every tier this week. I love the 5K range. A couple guys we'll talk about. One of them is next. I wanted to get your thoughts on Washington and Dallas. So Washington's a 7-point favorite. 43.5 point total. And, you know, you could argue that like a Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler's off the IR, by the way. So, you know, I don't love the backfield there. Dallas clearly gave up late in that game last week against the Eagles. No doubt. That's how you knew they weren't going for the Barkley record, because they pulled him with 12 minutes to go and Dallas had waved the white flag. But if you wanted to go to like Olamide Zaccheaus, ever since Noah Brown hit the IR, he's been getting a lot of work. I think it's fine, but it's in a weird range when you've got other value. I don't hate it. I'd prefer him over McLaurin, though, just because we don't know how this game necessarily goes. And then on the other side, Dowdle's just getting so much work that, I mean, I still think he's at the very least viable. Now, you're going to see Cooper Rush. You're going to see Trey Lance. Both of those guys are going to be out there today. But I don't actually hate Rico Dowdle at his current price point, only because even in a blowout last week, the guy still saw 20+ touches and 100+ yards.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely in a tier above what we just talked about. He's still not my favorite pay down option because you mentioned around him there's a lot of variance. I don't think the Cowboys really have a great grasp on what they're doing today. But I do like him ahead. You know, we had a super chat about some of these cheap running backs, and like a guy like Eckler, he's not even in the conversation for me. I don't want him. It would be, you know, Sanders or Shipley in that conversation. But for this game, better on the Washington side if you wanted to, you know, get some exposure to that passing game, particularly as cheap value, I think is my biggest interest. But again, you know, I think it's better use of everyone's time if we don't just say, oh yeah, another decent game. Like, no, this is a game I'm going to be way under on. It doesn't grade out. I ran a couple, you know, very preliminary sims, and I wasn't getting much of this game, and I'm pretty happy about that because I don't like this spot.
I'm fine with it. Plus, I'd prefer Tyrone Tracy a lot over Dowdle anyway.
So do I.
Do you? Yeah.
Yeah. That guy, it's not his fault that they don't know what they're doing. He's good. He's a good player.
And they've been down by 100 points early on in a lot of these games.
Him.
What?
Better than, I said, I know who that is. Better than your made up guy.
Who, Tracy?
Yeah.
Of course you know who Tracy is. Yeah. He stunk last week against Indy, but their offense just lit it up through the passing game. But he really look, I don't think either of us are arguing that Tyrone Tracy is great, you know, and that he's going to be a preeminent starting running back for years to come. But he's the type of guy, if you're going up against backups, that you could definitely have some interest in, you know?
Yeah, and the optics fit too. Like, that's the type of guy. These are meaningful games to him. Very meaningful. Like,
we're going to get, hold off on that, because I think we'll both have a lot to say regarding those type of circumstances, because that game's coming up next. But yeah, no, look, I have no problem with you kind of eschewing some of these games because we don't need to spend a ton of time on all of them. Washington, like I said, if I ended up with a little Zaccheaus at 4,500 on DraftKings, no issues there. Dowdle is fine, but he's the furthest thing from a priority, and trying to figure that passing game out for Dallas. What's the point right now? You know, if you ended up with a little Jake Ferguson, fine, but I mean, I don't think there's a single priority from this game.
No, definitely not. And I actually, Jake Ferguson on the surface, in a vacuum, whatever term you want to call it, I think is solid. There's just so many tight ends in that same range. So it wasn't like, oh, he didn't stand out amongst his peers.
Comment: if you don't like money, fade Evans. Why? Is that because of the matchup or because of the incentives? Because what if Evans finishes with 5 for 90 and a touchdown?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me started on the. We don't have enough time for me to start.
I'm going to have a lot of Evans. Don't get me wrong.
So am I, but not because of the incentives.
Exactly. Right. Like, people are betting his number up north of 100 now, like on the standard prop. And I'm not talking alt lines for 100+. I mean, like grabbing the Evans 100+ because he has an incentive for 85 yards, which does not compute. Now, could Evans get there? Obviously. Yeah, of course Mike Evans could get there. He's good in a great matchup. But if you're betting it for the incentives, I would say go back to the drawing board on how you do he's at 109 on DraftKings right now.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Evans is going to have a big game. And if your thought there is C, I knew it because no, it's because he's really good and Tampa needs this game desperately. So yeah.
96.5 on FanDuel, by the way. How about that? How about that difference?
I mean, I've seen this tweet going around. I think Greg may have tweeted it, that there probably is some equity to just literally waiting till like 12:45 and then just shorting all of these.
All of it. Yeah. What I'm saying though is DraftKings is 109.5 and FanDuel's 96.5.
Well, yeah, I don't have that up right now, but what you should do there is that's a nice middle if the juice isn't bad, and just take the 13 yards.
Yeah, it's a huge middle. Yeah, I tweeted yesterday. I said, according to X, Todd Bowles, like Twitter, Todd Bowles and Sean Payton, they're going to rally the troops in the locker room before kickoff and go, all right, boys, first order of business, we got an incentive to take care of. Once we lock that up, we can start worrying about winning this game. They're not thinking like that.
That's the other crazy thing. So, like, I'm not going to get into all the incentive stuff, but I do think it's a lot more pertinent when you have nothing else going on. Tampa's got real things going on. Like, if they were out of it and it's like, well, none of this matters, well, there's an incentive. Like, you can kind of do whatever you want. Who cares? But they will run the ball. Not that they're going to do this, but they would gladly run the ball 50 times today and take their win. And that's it. If they need to, they need to win the game.
Exactly. Andre B said, the incentive is kind of important. What if Baker hits him for a deep shot early and then he has a huge game? Yeah, but that could happen in any week. What does the incentive have to do with that? Whatever. It's unimportant. Mike Evans is a great play today. All we're saying is forget about the fact if the incentive's 85 and say he had like needed 5 receptions and a touchdown. If he had 5 for 85 and a touchdown, that's not winning you anything at 8K. That's all I'm saying. You still need more than anything that has to do with his incentive. Okay.
Just yeah. Last one, I promise.
Okay.
Do you seriously think in the huddle of a must-win game, they're worried about getting Evans' incentive out of the way? That can't happen.
Or are they throwing the ball to Evans because he's by far the best pass catcher on the team?
Yeah, they're gonna feed him because they need the game, not because of the incentive. Anyway, let's go. Talk to me about Mr. Tracy, my guy.
Bonesaw, Baker 100% is going to feed Mike. Don't be surprised if he doubles what he needs for the incentive. Yeah, he's going to feed him because he's the best player out there. All right, that's okay. Let's go.
Like, if he didn't have an incentive, are we saying that Mike Evans would just have like 2 catches today?
Right, in a must-win game. Like, feed your best player. Yeah, obviously. Anyway, Giants and Eagles. Listen, I'm willing to take the shots here. This has nothing to do with what Drew Lock did last week. This is the fact that Drew Lock is I think he's on a 1 year. Either way, whatever. Yeah, he's on a 1 year deal. This is kind of a prove it game to Drew Lock. I already liked this on Tuesday, but now that yesterday happened, they fell out of even contention for the first pick. It's down to 3 teams. I don't know about you, man, but like Malik Neighbors in this spot, here's another one. He could break the rookie record of receptions. I actually think that's more meaningful than Evans because they don't need to win this game. So if you came out there with the intent on feeding Malik Neighbors, not only because he's good, but because what do you have to lose? Sure. But Malik Neighbors, Tyrone Tracy, I think Wan'Dale Robinson's fine. Drew Lock, you're going to see a lot of starters rested for the Philadelphia Eagles today in a meaningless game. They locked up the division and the 2nd seed last week. They cannot move. I'll be getting to a good amount of Giants today.
Yeah, like I said, the Giants, unlike what we just talked about, which a lot of you missed the point completely, have nothing to play for. And don't even get me started. But Neighbors showed healthy, busy, and you mentioned you want incentive. Drew Lock has a ton of incentive to play well today, and I actually think he's the type of mentality you want. He'll sling it. He does have ample weapons, and yeah, Philly defense in name, of course, terrible. Not the situation today. So if you're looking for it's not super cheap, and again, there's value all over the place, but you're not breaking the bank getting to some of these Giants. And to me, it's pretty simple. You've got Neighbors, you've got Tracy. You want to play lock? You can play lock and go skinny or even a +2. That's about all I want. We could talk about Shipley on the other side, but I think we all know the Eagles they're gearing down today.
Yeah, they're gearing down, but I think Jahan Dotson's a nice play today.
Ooh. Your boy? Okay.
He's the
Talk to me.
furthest thing from my boy. I mean, I've been anti-Dotson all season long,
Yeah.
but not because it's his fault. I just mean they haven't wanted to use him. But I mean, think about it. No AJ Brown, no Devonta Smith. I'm not saying Tanner McKee is special, right? And let's not take away like 1/4 of play from last week against the lifeless Dallas team to, draw all of our decisions here. But I think if you're going to the bottom, Dotson's not bad. And here's why. He's not actually a creative player, right? Like he's still an NFL player. He's also, there are plenty of teams where Dotson would have been like a 5-6 target per game guy in this league, just not playing behind Devonta Smith, AJ Brown on a low volume passing team with a rushing quarterback and Saquon Barkley.
I don't disagree with that. It's fine. Honestly, I did not consider him today. When I was looking at the Eagles, it was really, do I want to do anything in that backfield or just kind of pass on them?
I mean, you could go both. I mean, not in the same lineup, but first of all, you have to try and figure out whether or not you want to go with Kenneth Gainwell, who I actually think would be the worst of the worst of the options here. I don't anticipate Gainwell getting a ton of opportunities.
Neither do I. That I wouldn't get at all, to be completely honest. Kenneth Gainwell's, I don't want to say that, listen, they're all players and they're important, but like Kenneth Gainwell has a real role. I don't think your goal is to run him into the ground. It's, to me, Shipley would be the one who gets the work. There's always an opportunity cost. And I know Michael Carter's already been mentioned in chat. We haven't got to the game. I do prefer the Arizona back.
So they didn't elevate Price Davis. That's important because, and let me just make sure, or Davis Price, sorry. Tyrion Davis Price. I get that wrong all the time. They didn't elevate him. So in saying that, if Will Shipley is activated, or not activated, if he's good to go because he had the concussion, but he got in full practices, Shipley's probably a good play this week.
Oh yeah, no, Shipley's definitely playable, and I have no problem with him. I actually kind of like him as a player as well. He catch the ball, he can do some things. Yeah, it's just a matter of, in a normal week, if we were talking about a $4,600 running back, that would be like we would have a $1,500 gap to the next guy we mentioned. There's plenty of backs that are within $1,000 of Shipley. So you do have options, but he is certainly playable. And listen, the Giants defense, they have more utility today, of course, because they're resting people, but it's still the Giants defense. I wouldn't be stunned to see that Philly put up a healthy amount of points.
Yobi Trice, and I bet the Giants today for what it's worth, but I'm stuck between Shipley and Carter from Arizona. I'm rotating Carter, Corum, and Dobbs with various receivers. Do you like Irving, if not Evans? No, I like Evans a lot today.
As do I. If Evans has 2 touchdowns today and somebody tweets me like I told you, I'm going to find a thing beyond blocking. Like I can't with that.
No, I'll just find them week 1 or was it 2 of the season where Evans scored 2 touchdowns as well with a huge game. Like, oh yeah, how about those incentives? If you're stuck between Shipley and Carter, I still think Carter's the better option because they just have, like, we know that actually, I'd say we're pretty confident he's going to be the guy, right?
I think so. I like Carter a lot today.
Yeah. DJ Dallas, maybe, but even last week when James Conner went down early in the game, Carter saw a lot of those opportunities. Do you like Irving? If not, both of those, man, for sure. It's a great team to target with a meaningful game. All their top dogs should be heavily rotated throughout your lineups without question. Jordan, can you run that lineup for Yobi in the single lineup sim and throw it on the screen for him? Thanks. What would beyond blocking be? I mean, I guess you can't report them. You just.
No, I'm going to make them do a show. And I'll be in chat, but yeah,
that'd be fun. That'd be fun. But no, I said this early in the week. I said it with the betting video. I said it with all of our DFS shows. you are going to have to inject some of your own analysis. And I don't want to use the word bias, but reads. How about that, Ben? Like, you're going to have to inject some of your own reads here. Maybe you think that the Giants play differently than I do. Then you shouldn't be trying to get over the field on Locke and Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson and Tyrone Tracy. It just so happens that for me, the Giants are one of those teams today that I think a lot of these players themselves, forget about coaching, have a lot to play for. And that's why I like the Giants. And on the other side, while they don't have a lot to play for, it's still a well-coached Eagles team for the most part. You know, offense can hum. John Dotson is super cheap. You know, he's close to the minimum. He's a talented enough receiver, and all of the other top guys are going to be off the field. And if Will Shipley's activated, I think you could see Will Shipley get the bulk of opportunities. So actually a game I like quite a bit for a weird 13-game slate in Week 18.
Yeah, listen, I like I said, the Eagles, these players don't get a lot of opportunities. So for them, you know, they're fresh, they're motivated. It is a sneaky good game, one of the better ones. And you're not breaking the bank with pretty much whoever you target here. So I'll be over on the game. Lock if I play a quarterback, but yeah, not bad.
Okay. Let's keep it moving here, baby. Let's go to, who do we got next? Buffalo, New England. All right.
Get this. Just keep going.
Nah, Buffalo is going to be a write-off outside of Ray Davis. I was convinced earlier in the week that they were going to elevate Frank Gore Jr. from the practice squad. I was pretty convinced of that because, you know, why not? But you can only elevate two, and they decided to elevate linemen. So with that in mind, I think Ray Davis just has to be, because he's somewhat used, right? Like in this offense, he kind of has a Gainwell role in a sense, maybe a little bit less, but he still has a role. Same with Ty Johnson. I think at this point, because they didn't elevate Frank Gore Jr., Ray Davis would be the guy for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. It is like a Gainwell role, but they also have Ty Johnson in the Gainwell role as well. So Ray Davis for me as well. I looked at Curtis Samuel. He was kind of, you know, you mentioned Dotson in the last game. That was kind of my equivalent of that as a pay down dart throw. I just don't know, and you know, sporting a Q tag, so it's not a team that I want to mess around with. You before the show we were talking about Ray Davis, and that is a situation that I'm definitely in line with. But other than that, what else is there to say about Buffalo? Just a team with an incentive to get this game over with quickly and easily.
Right. That's all it comes down to. Captain America Bleed said, if Tyrion Davis-Price gets the starting nod at min price for the Eagles, would you roll the dice? Listen, man, you guys can tell me, but everything I've seen is that he was not elevated from the practice squad. So no, I would not play him because he's not on the team. Yeah. Not on the team. But yeah, Ray Davis to me is the only guy that I'd look at for this team right now. I don't really have, I don't have much interest in betting on Mitch Trubisky to get the ball to these players. And then on the Patriots side, I didn't think Drake May would play. That the line suggested that earlier in the week and still does. But now it looks like he's expected to start. I just think you probably see Joe Milton as well. Like I'm not convinced May plays this whole game. The Patriots are pretty much a write-off for me today.
Yeah, Patriots are for me, and they've been a little Jekyll and Hyde. They, you know, actually just against Buffalo, played really well. No showed against the Chargers. Too many other teams, low total. I know it's a competitive spread, but no, I don't like the Patriots today at all.
You guys might be right. Maybe it is Gainwell season. My lean is that it's Shipley if he's good and back. That's my lean, is that it's Shipley. Again, you're gonna have to make some of those decisions. But yeah, I think it would be Shipley. Stephen Leibowitz, we should really get to 500 likes by the top of the hour. We got 16 minutes to get to 500. We'll get there. We'll hit the 7, man. Well, there's people that jumped in, they forgot, and they go, oh shit, I forgot. I got you. You know, it'll happen. I'm still confident. Thank you guys in advance. But yeah, it's Ray Davis in this game for me. I think that's it right now.
Yep.
All right. Let's talk about Carolina and Atlanta. Xavier Legette, Miles Sanders questionable. I mean, if Miles Sanders ends up playing here, I would actually still be very comfortable. He was activated, but we don't know if he's going to play. I would still be very comfortable simply still not playing Miles Sanders.
It's a tough one. Because I was building Bryce Young stack this morning, and I had the perfect amount left for Miles Sanders. I definitely see this is where you mentioned like where it's a tricky slate of like there's an inference, and at times you're gonna have to bet on yourself. I don't know what to do here because it's still really crowded in this backfield. It's not like, oh, Miles Sanders and there's nobody else. Now they got all sorts of random guys that they can throw back there. So do I want to do that, or do I want to bump up to Michael Carter, Will Shipley, Ray Davis? More so, I think I'm going to do that. I definitely think that Miles Sanders has a path. I just don't think it's super clear cut. I'm a little freaked out about how much volume any of them say.
This damn team still has Velus Jones Jr. as a running back.
Yeah, that's not great.
What is he, 40 now?
He's not that old, is he?
Didn't he come into the league super old?
Your guess is much better than mine. I have no idea.
I don't know. He's 27.
Yeah, I feel like I watched him in college not long ago.
You did, but that's still pretty old. Anyway, not that it matters. He didn't pan out. I mean, when they drafted him in the 3rd round, people were left scratching their heads. But okay, you have Raheem Blackshear, you have Mike Boone. I just don't see why you'd activate Sanders and give him a healthy workload. Plus, the guy stinks. Maybe because he's on a big contract. What?
Don't be getting just because you with your former Eagles.
My thought process on Sanders, and maybe I'm rewriting history a little bit.
Yeah, you are.
Has always been though, the teams who pay a large sum for a running back who just had a big season in Philly are going to be likely disappointed. Because the Eagles make running backs good. That's why everyone blaming the Giants front office for not signing Barkley. Why would you sign Barkley if you're the Giants? That would have been so. The mistake they made was signing Daniel Jones.
Oh,
paying Daniel Jones, not letting Barkley go. Seriously, say what you want. I don't care if you're a Giants fan and you're salty. Why would you give Barkley a huge payday so you can maybe okay, that's awesome. So now instead of winning 3 games this season, you won 4. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The team that has an elite offensive line with one of the best offensive line coaches ever signed him, and he had 2,000 yards. Do you think Barkley comes close to 2,000 with the Giants this year? Stop it. Would have been
a incentive. 3,000. 3,000 yards. He just needs it in 1 game. Yeah, listen, I hear you. You're betting on a lot of unknowns here, and the Miles Sanders unknown has a little more red flags than I like. I also kind of like the passing game. I'm okay with taking some shots, certainly on Thielen, who's just been absolutely awesome. 3 touchdowns in the last 2 games will do that. But to me, if you take all the teams that need a win today, need to win. Obviously, all of them are heavy favorite. If you told me one of them lost, I would say it's Atlanta.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. I still love Bijan. I mean, to me, Bijan's the best play on the slate.
I mean, I've gotten plenty wrong this year, but one thing I didn't get wrong was buying on Bijan. He's been awesome all year. They seem to now recognize that this guy can handle the work, and Algier has not affected the ceiling as much as he was. 8,500 is no problem for him. I expect 20 plus touches once again. He is a touchdown machine, 4 in the last 2 games. All systems go for Bijan today.
All right. I agree. Love Bijan. Darnell Mooney is not expected to play. Do you still like London? Because I know you did earlier in the week.
I do like him. It gets just tricky though, because it's like I'm not really keen to put him and Bijan in the same lineup because I don't really like Penix, and that is a little pricey for me in terms of that's 15,000 for 2 without your quarterback. I'm fine with going to Drake London, particularly if you don't get to Bijan. So you've got some options there. And like I said, Atlanta, despite me saying I think they could get into a game here, they should hold serve at home. You're at home in a game you got to have. You would expect that offense to have opportunities.
All right. Coach S. I think Coach S took down the big tournament yesterday.
Not only did he take it down, he solo took it down.
I saw.
I scrolled to the top, and a lot of times when I do that, I just look at the numbers first, and it's like 19, 1998, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and I'm like, holy shit, there's a 1. It's our friend Coach S, just Najee and Fryermuth coming up in the clutch for the man.
Yeah, congrats, dude. Thanks for the super chat. You guys rock. Not sure on timing of the super chat, so read it whenever. Quick take. It is the NFL. I like playing defense with starters going versus backups. Defense, sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, Giants defense, no problem with that. Seattle D, sure. Denver, even New England defense this week.
I like New England.
I don't mind. I don't mind the Jets defense either.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing I like about New England is that you always want opportunity. It's not just about like, oh, no production. You could get some throws up there, some chances, and that's really all you're asking for, because you needed on someone scoring a defensive touchdown today. There's too many teams not to, so you need to just have the opportunity to get lucky.
And Mitch Trubisky, no stranger to turnovers.
That's true.
Yeah, shout out to you though, Coach S. I saw that this morning when I checked the standings. Also, you guys ever want to get access to these tools and do it for free? If you join any of our sportsbook partners, you get Core for free. It's $100 value a month. It's getting you the sims. It's getting you the single lineup sim, projections, boom bust tool, top stacks tool, premium Discord, all of that. Jordan threw the link in the chat right now to all 26+ of you watching. It's also in the description too, where it says join any sportsbook, gets the Castic Sims free. The steps are super simple. And if you're in a non-legal betting state, all of the pick'em sites on here are included as well. Here's all you have to do, right? Make better lineups. You want to win more money. You want to get it for NFL and for NBA. And hell, PGA's happening, right, Ben? So you get PGA sims as well, right? Sign up with three different sports books or 3 different pick'em sites. That's 3 months of 3 different sports. Click claim offer. That's the first step. If you screw that up, well, you're done anyway. And maybe this isn't for you. But I have faith that anybody who's looking to do this jumps on the page, they see exactly what to do. Click claim offer. Jordan can show you where it is right there. On anyone you want. Mind you, if you're not on any of these and you signed up on all of them, however many books that is, that's as many months as you get of whatever sports you want. Click claim offer. Simply instantly verify yourself. It takes like a minute. Deposit, usually $5 or $10 is the minimum deposit. Then place that on any bet you want. It doesn't matter what it is. The moment that bet settles, take a screenshot of your settled bet. Doesn't have to be the moment, but take a screenshot of your settled bet and take a screenshot of your welcome email from said sportsbooks or pick'em sites and simply email them to us at support@stokastic.com. And to make our boy Ron's life in the customer service area easier, let him know what sports you want out of the gate so he doesn't have to do it back and forth with you. That's all there is to it, Ben. No easier way to get access to these tools.
Yeah, I mean, listen, as I always say, take advantage of the easy wins. We're trying to win large field tournaments, do all that stuff. Put yourself in the best position. Get the tools, get the value, get the promos, get the bonuses, and then check it out. I've had a lot of people in Discord because I guess I'm known for some golf, bet a lot of golf, do a lot of golf DFS. And a lot of people have used the free, and they said, I never really played PGA. I'm excited to get into it this year. I was never going to, spend my money on the PGA Sims because, I'm focused on the NBA. I'm focused on the NFL. And now I have a free month to spare and I'm going to try out PGA for the month. And that's really exciting because you may find an edge that you didn't know about and you're doing it kind of on the house style. And that's the key.
Yeah, man.
PGA streets are wild, man. Let me tell you.
They are wild. Anyway, links down there. Bobby B's Sims Max would have been $99. I'd buy rest of season. We still have the discount on Sims Max through the rest of the season. It'll still get you a nice discount. That's the first link in there. It'll still get you a nice discount on Sims, but it would have been better a couple weeks ago for sure. But this is still cheaper than what you would pay for a month, and you're getting an additional week in there as well. But anyway, if you guys ever have any questions, hit us up. My DMs are always open on Twitter as well. So give me the lay of the land here, because for me, it's Bijan far and away number one here. If you wanted to go with some like Penix, Pitts, London stacks, I wouldn't hate you for it. I, I think you like Carolina more than I do, though. I can say that much.
Okay. Yeah, and I listen, I want to be clear. I'm not jamming Carolina, but they've been in. I like teams that week 18 isn't a drastic change. And for Carolina, it's certainly not. They've just been kind of playing a little better. Bryce Young has come along pretty nicely. There's some promise there. Thielen is doing his thing. So there are pieces. I think the backfield is kind of a mess, but when you look outside that, you do have opportunities. And so I'll echo what you said. Bijan 1, Falcons passing game 2 if you want to go there. And then I don't mind some Carolina exposure today.
So this Houston and Tennessee game is, I think, very tricky because D'Amico Ryans, I've been shouting this from the rooftops all week. Dude's clearly not happy with how his team has played at all, right? At all. And he shouldn't be. No one's going to blame him. They got embarrassed on Christmas, embarrassed by the Ravens on Christmas Day. They've had some rest. He said he's going to play whoever's healthy. But here's the issue for me is that if they come out of the gate and play really well, because they've had this 4 seed essentially locked up for multiple weeks now, Ben. If they come out of the gate and they play well through the first half, I wouldn't be shocked if you see Davis Mills and some backups in the second half. That's what worries me. If they don't, maybe they play the whole game, or maybe they just don't play the whole game entirely. My guess, though, is if they have a really good first half, this team may see some starters sitting down, especially with CJ Stroud admitting to being banged up. That scares me a little bit.
Definitely scares me as well. I think the line kind of leads you to that as well. This is pure you've mentioned this on the First Look show. I'm going to steal it. This is like pure preseason mentality where you want to get them some reps. You want to see some promise, but you don't need to see it for 4 quarters. Like, I honestly believe this game has a range of outcomes that if Houston got the ball first and drove 80 yards for a touchdown, they might say, okay, let's end it on a high note and get out of there.
Yeah. How many times it is straight preseason style. Like when they go, they'll play. Here the coach will go, they'll play around the quarter. Right. But if they have a nice, like 6-minute touchdown drive, that's it. The day's over.
Yeah, we've seen enough. I think the key for Houston is, can we get to a spot that we feel at least a little better about where we're at heading into the playoffs? You don't want to head into the playoffs, like the Eagles. We talked about this on Tuesday, where it was like, the ship was sinking. I don't think they want that. So I expect them to play a little bit. Do they need 4 quarters of it, though? I'd say probably not. And that makes this game, at least on the Houston side, I will not have a Houston player in my lineups.
Okay.
You got me on Houston first half. I will say that. I did bet Houston first half. I tailed you on that.
It makes sense, right? If you're
I love that angle.
Yeah. Preseason's one of my favorite things to bet because you find those weird angles. Some books just stopped offering first quarter and first half, but if you can, you do it. Guitar Z-Man, Deadwood is awesome. All the history and beautiful Black Hills. Never been there, but the show is awesome.
No, Deadwood, I've never.
Did you watch the show though? The HBO show? Oh, I'm a huge, I love those Western type shows. Love them. And movies. They're great. You ever watch Bone Tomahawk?
Oh yeah. Right before this show, actually.
Why do you say that like it's... Why
the hell is it sounds like a weird cut of meat that I get at David Burke's.
Well, tomahawk steak, sure, but Bone Tomahawk's insane. You should watch Bone Tomahawk. It's good.
I'll put it on the list.
Well, I mean, don't act like I'm giving you something wild here.
No, it sounds wild. It sounds wild.
Are you not a fan? Are you not a fan of Kurt Russell?
Not particularly.
All right, just watch it. It's nuts. It's good.
He's in one of those obscenely, but whatever. We don't have time for that. He's in one of the really outrageous movies, like Escape from LA or Showdown in Little. Hold on. Go ahead.
Well, this one is straight gore style. Not all of them. It's good.
Russell. Escape from New York, Escape from LA. That's what I was thinking of. Those movies are insane. And Big Trouble in Little China. That's what I was thinking of. Okay.
Oh, I've never seen that.
That's insane. Well, terrible, but good. Yeah.
I think the same guy that produced Bone Tomahawk did Brawl in Cell Block 99, which I assume you've never seen either.
Okay.
Yo, it's sick. It's Vince Vaughn. You should watch that too. And then Dragged Across Concrete's another one with Mel Gibson. I believe he did all of those. Whatever. You guys watch them. Let me know. Let me know what you think. If you can handle those type of movies, they're pretty good. Anyway, I'm with you. I don't think I get to Houston here, especially with Nico being priced up and not being totally confident I get a full game. I think I'd rather go to Neighbors there or Evans, right? Evans is similarly priced. What do you make of Pollard, though? Because there's a part of me that wants to get to Pollard with Tajay Spears out. He has some incentives. I forget what they are, but also just the fact that if he's in, why would Pollard be active when they could just use the old chestnut otherwise?
Yeah, I don't mind that. I think my biggest concern with Pollard, it wasn't like a concussion or something. It's an ankle, so like maybe the volume is suppressed and there are other options. But Tennessee's been a pain point, and the passing game is a mess with their seemingly quarterback rotation. Is Chig? I know Chig is sporting a Q tag. You just don't know. He didn't practice on Friday, so we need to see some of these inactives. Tennessee, you just rattled off like 15 movies. What, Dragged Across Concrete? Is that what you said?
Jordan L said, loved Brawl in Cell Block 99, Dragged Through Concrete was meh. And he's right. It was okay, but I was left wanting more. Brawl in Cell Block 99's wicked, man. It's gruesome, but awesome. Anyway,
Dragged Across Concrete sums up the Tennessee Titans in my experience this year of what I've been dealing with. So I'm not sure I want to get to Ridley. If I go to the Titans, it would be Tony Pollard. But
that was a great callback, man.
That's what I do. I mean,
that was
God.
Good. Well, and also it's going to be Will Levis and Mason Rudolph today.
Yeah. Don't want to mess around with that's just a tough ask.
No Pollard then?
No, Pollard's the one guy for the
Okay.
Titans that I think it's fine because I don't think the quarterback carousel really affects his path. You know what I mean? He either gets there in volume or he doesn't.
Absolutely. You know where else I think there's potential value here? If Houston does sit their starters in the second half.
That is true.
Pollard plays the whole game.
Yeah, that is true. We don't know exactly what the opposition looks like late in the game.
All right. Priorities here. I won't say any priorities. I'll say this though. I like Chig again today. They're really trying to get him the ball. I've always liked him, so maybe I'm biased, but I think he's actually good. Pollard and Chig for me.
Do you worry about Chig playing?
Well, yeah, I mean he has to play, sure.
Well, that's true. I just mean
no. I'm saying why would these guys be active in week 18?
That's a fair point. It does seem like if you're on the cusp, you just say sit out. Juwan Johnson, him, these type of players. So that's fair.
Yeah. Again, could I be wrong because it's week 18 and anything goes? Sure, but if he plays, I'll play Chig. Put it that way. If he plays at 3,800, I'll play Chig Okonkwo. Jacksonville and Indy. All right, what are you doing here? Jags are 3.5-point road dogs. Brian Thomas has been a stud. I don't want the backfield. Parker Washington has had value in other slates, but I don't think you need him on this slate. And then on the other side, Josh Downs kept me from having a really nice week. Now, for what it's worth, he was super chalky. So it would have been like me having a nice week, but clearly not winning anything because of Downs. But it would have taken a losing week to a pretty nice week. You know how they go. But no Anthony Richardson. Do we go back to the Flacco, Pittman, Downs, Pierce, Jonathan Taylor? I think Jonathan Taylor actually looks pretty good today too. I don't mind Indy at all.
I don't mind Indy at all either. I prefer the passing game, and you are playing a little bit of roulette last week. It was Pierce over Pittman over Downs this week. I don't think there's any rhyme or reason. I prefer Michael Pittman just kind of on its own merit. I think he's the best of the bunch, and Downs not far behind. And then, yeah, on the other side, it's pretty clear just add it to the laundry list of LSU pass catchers. I mean, Brian Thomas is fantastic. So I'll keep it to the passing game here. You like Jonathan Taylor more than I do. It's not that I don't like the spot, but I prefer Bucky and I prefer Bijan pretty strongly.
Ty Vincent, you kept yourself from having a big week by playing downs. Sure, fella. Eric Ronas, Laffy, you and I probably had the same lineup last week. Honestly, it was so I don't know. I took a massive stand on Tampa last week in the betting market too. I bet the alt 19.5 spread. Like I really liked Tampa. It was a mega Tampa stack. I think it was like a Irving, Evans, McMillan, Baker, but then I had Downs and one other guy who just stunk. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure who it was. Nick Andrews, I did watch that. Ben didn't watch that, I assume.
What?
I don't buy it. The guy seemed way too eager to talk, Nick. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, you're right. You could answer for me. No, I didn't catch that one.
I knew you wouldn't. I don't buy it, Nick. I know it's getting a lot of attention here, but I don't buy like the anti-gravitic propulsion systems being launched out of the Atlantic by the Chinese. Call me crazy. And I love a good conspiracy. I just don't buy it. It seems off. I had 3 buddies text me the night it came out, and I hit him up. I was like, I don't know, man. Seems a little off to me. But anyway, if I were to prioritize spots from this game, Brian Thomas is, to me, like Brian Thomas, just any week at this point is viable. Yep. He's great. And Mac Jones, they have a true connection there, which is awesome, and it's evident. He's getting double-digit targets every week. Not really sure why you changed that this week with everybody else hurt. Ingram, Christian Kirk, Gabe Davis. They don't really have anybody. He's the best of all of them anyway, even if they were active. How much exposure do you get before we move on from this game to the Indy side, though? And how do you do it?
So the one good thing about Indy is the ownership is pretty dispersed. There's not like a guy where you need to make like an aggressive stand. These wide receivers from Pittman's going to be pretty popular. And then you've got Downs and I think Pierce still won't be. It's going to be limited to kind of one-offs because I'm not getting to Flacco. So, and I'm not saying that you couldn't. I just prefer other quarterbacks. So for me, it's just mixing and matching with all of them, including Brian Thomas. Like I will just have exposure in the lineups of, obviously I'm going to, leverage with the Sims and see what it gives me. But I anticipate just having a good amount of Pittman, Brian Thomas, and Downs as the 3 from this game.
Okay. Less Taylor, huh?
Yeah, and that's more because I'm really content just saying, okay, if I pay up, it'll be Bijan and Bucky, and if I don't, I've got like 5 guys in the sub 6 that I'm okay with.
I know this is going to sound wild, so feel free to just disregard everything I'm saying. But what do you think? I'm going to say like there's aliens living in my attic or something?
That wouldn't even be in the top 5 in the last 20 minutes of things that you said that I'm confused about.
When Jonathan Taylor goes on these type of runs, they always feel like they last a damn month. Like he just goes on these insane runs where he just has these huge games back to back to back. And he's done it many times throughout his career. And now you go into week 18. I don't really understand the purpose of resting him at this point. Like, plus they're not a team where if they lose, they're in the contention for a top 3 pick anyway, right? They were in contention for a playoff seed last week, albeit, very narrow path to get there. It just feels like Jonathan Taylor could have a 25 carry game again, and I wouldn't bat an eye at it.
Definitely could. I will say though, there is an unquantifiable nature of the Colts because they had the biggest change. It was all in last week and it's over. They lost to the Giants. So like, I don't know. Maybe that is changing what they're doing. I don't think that's impossible. This is not how it was after they blew that game. So I'm not saying that Jonathan Taylor isn't going to see a full workload, but I don't think it's impossible that some of it is suppressed just due to the fact that the Colts now have ruined their season.
Deuce Trey, I want to hit on this. He said, only important games matter. Don't take that approach on a slate like this, man. if we're being completely honest with ourselves, how many unimportant, meaningless games have actually been happening for the past month and a half?
Yeah, I mean, I get that. It's easy to think about it like that because you feel more, again, it's more comfortable to play Tampa than it is to play Carolina or just a random team where you don't know what the hell's going on. But when you're talking about tournament stuff, I do think it's good to maybe open yourself up to a little unknown, because if you get those right, the payoff, everyone knows if Bucky goes off today, you and 45% of your closest friends are going to be in business, and that doesn't necessarily get it done.
But what I'm saying is if Jacksonville and Tennessee played each other a month ago, it would still be a meaningless game.
Yep. Very
But
true.
we would still have some exposure potentially.
Yeah. For a lot of these teams, week 18 is not different than week 13.
I've told you guys.
Or in the Titans case, week 1. They've just been irrelevant the whole year. So
I put these games into 4 different buckets. I talked about it throughout the week. I won't repeat it, but there's different styles of competition. Some of them are more valuable than others. All right. Where are we at next? KC and Denver. All right. Here we go. By the way, if you're not repping the Stokastic avatar yet, don't do yourself that disservice by continuing not to rep it. You go to stokastic.com/HOF. Very simple. Download any of those avatars. We have the original there too. There's 6 of them. Use it wherever it is you play. Just simply upload it. DraftKings, FanDuel, Yahoo, Owner's Box, wherever it is you play. If you finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, and it doesn't matter, Ben, how many times do we see someone that entered like the nickel or the dime package and they ended up getting gold tier because they won 3 times in a calendar month or a calendar year? By the way, it just reset. How many times have you seen that where they end up getting all access max package, $550 value for winning like 3 dime packages within a year?
yeah, no doubt. Listen, it only enhances good things happening. Like I said, you rock that and you hit something that's awesome, and now you're getting more benefits, more perks. So we've seen it a ton, and that stuff makes a difference. And yeah, it's on the screen right now. A lot of good value, in addition to never bad to see yourself at the top of the leaderboard.
Oh yeah, man. First time winner, you get Sims Max. That's $200 value for the month, any sport you want. Silver, second time, win twice in a calendar year. Get another month plus a free week. A third time, get Sims All Access Max. That's every tool, every sport for the entirety of the site. And now that the year just reset, you got a full year to do this. Like no better time to start now because you got an entire year to rack these up. And any win above 20K, doesn't matter the entry size or how many people are in it. You get the beautiful Stokastic engraved ring with the display case with your name, the win, all that beautiful stuff on it. There they are. Look at them glisten. And you can't see it, but on the ring itself, it has your name. It has Hall of Fame in there with your win, the date, and all that good stuff. So you ever want to get involved, those are sweet. All the feedback we've gotten, people have loved them too. Shout out to you guys for letting me know about that. But anyway, stokastic.com/HOF, great place to make it happen. All right, the Chiefs. Do you want to play any of these Chiefs skill players today? Carson Wentz, Carson Steele. Are there any of these guys that may pique your interest just because we know that most of the starters are going to be out? Are you going to go to Nico Remigio?
Well, now that I know who he is, I have slightly more interest, but I still would go with 0. And no, I don't, because this is a tough matchup on the surface. If all Kansas City's guys were playing, going to Denver is never the easiest situation, and they're not. So yes, there will be roles and there will be value on Kansas City, but is it better value than we've talked about? I would say no. I would have Carson Steele behind multiple backs that we talked about. Kansas City is a throwaway for me. I don't see them playing well today.
Okay, I can't keep doing this.
What?
But I'm going to. No, I'm not. I'm going to ignore it.
Look at you.
No, I'm not. Incentives mean something. Not,
Here
yeah,
we
yeah.
go.
I am. I'm ignoring it. Play Mike Evans. How about that?
Well, I wouldn't know. I got people are wondering how I'm still employed. So what do I know? Got all the goblins today, but I will be playing Cortland Sutton on the other side. That much I'll be doing.
Sure. Yeah, Mike Evans is currently my second highest exposed wide receiver, and I have a ton of Cortland Sutton in this game as well. Yes, he has a big incentive on hand. Would you be playing Cortland Sutton anyway is the question. For me, at 6,400 against the Chiefs backups in a must-win game as a 10-point favorite, you better believe I'd still have a lot of Cortland Sutton.
Yeah, again, that's one where he would supersede even the situation with Kansas City. I just like that on its own merit. So he's just a really solid mid-range wide receiver.
Yeah. I don't want to go to Wentz here. Would I play Wentz if he had all of his top guys? Sure, I'd consider that. But it's not a great matchup either. And Denver has everything to play for. They need to win this game. If Denver loses, it's no longer that they might not make the playoffs. If Denver loses, they don't make the playoffs, right? It's that simple.
Yeah, I mean, Denver has to have it. And you couldn't ask for a better situation. You're at home as a double-digit favorite. You should be able to get it done.
Would you play Mims after that great Saturday game against Cincinnati?
So again, that is the type of guy you're going to get a couple of those a year, and you're going to get a bunch of sub 10-point outputs. And it doesn't mean he can't have two in a row, but it also doesn't mean that he's more likely to have two in a row either. I don't think his game last week was indicative of anything. So he's always kind of,
with that.
Yeah, he's in the conversation, but I'm not more likely to play him. In fact, I'm probably slightly less likely to play him because I think other people see that and they're like, oh, Mims's role has changed. And I don't believe that's true.
Randy Schwartz, member for 27 months. Thanks, man. Using the free super chat. London or Sutton in cash on DK? Sutton for me.
Sutton for me as well. Yeah, for cash. I really don't see him not having at least, a healthy amount of targets, and that's really all you can ask for.
DC 24, do you think the Chiefs consider Gray as a quote unquote starter? Yeah, that's a very fair question. He's a starter, but he's not like what you could see here, like we saw last year in week 18. Noah Gray still only played 47% of snaps. Justin Watson last year still only played 31% of snaps and then played 68% of snaps in that first playoff game. I believe that was the freezing cold game against Miami at Arrowhead. So, that's why when I asked you about the Nico Remigio, because I think he'll be the guy to get the majority of snaps, while maybe Juju and Justin Watson play, but they don't play a ton. And plus, Mecole Hardman was not activated for this game. Justin Ross is not on the roster. And I don't think Montrell Washington is either. So I would it shock me if Remigio ended up playing like 90% of snaps and people go, who the hell is that guy? It actually wouldn't. It's just the matchup stinks as well.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm not in love with the matchup, and that goes for the backfield and some of these guys. Volume issues, matchup issues. Not seeing it for Kansas City today. I think the Broncos defense will probably be pretty popular, and I get that.
Although, the Chiefs, I have seen that floated out there that the Chiefs are going to lose on purpose because they don't want to face the Bengals. That is actually the least crazy thing I've heard in chat throughout the day. So but losing on purpose is just not playing your starters too, right?
Yeah, I mean, they have multiple reasons to lose today.
Right.
Certainly wouldn't want to face the Bengals right now. I agree with that.
I tell you what, though, looking at the depth chart, they don't have that many healthy wide receivers if they sit a lot of these guys. So maybe Watson and Juju play more than they did last year. I think they actually will. Let me put it this way. If you need value, I don't think if you wanted to take a flyer on Chiefs wide receivers, I don't think it's the craziest idea. But to your question regarding Noah Gray, my guess is that he doesn't I'd be shocked if Noah Gray comes out there and just has all of the work at tight end. That's probably Peyton Hendershot.
Yeah, also, I still think they're names. Yep.
I'm not playing anyone in the backfield for Denver.
No. The backfield has been a mess for quite a while.
Okay, next game. I like this. I like the Chargers today. Palmer's out. Edwards is out. I like the Justin Herbert, Lad McConkey, Will Disley, even if you wanted to go Quentin Johnston stacks. I don't hate J.K. Dobbins. All right, Chad, here's your chance. Throw the incentives for J.K. Dobbins in there. I know he's got one. But no, I like the Chargers today. I think the Chargers look good. They moved from 4.5 to 7-point favorites right after the Steelers lost that game. No surprise. We talked about it earlier in the show. This game means a lot to the Chargers. Means you can avoid facing Baltimore and get to face Houston in the opening round. I think that's a really big deal. I think that's a huge deal. So yeah, I like the Herbert stacks today. I don't think it's going to be all that chalky either.
I don't either because again, it's late news and even I think some people the Chargers, I don't want to be clear, they do have something to play for, something very important. We've talked about that a couple times. And so I think it's all systems go. And just like last week, I'm sure their goal is going to be let's destroy this team and then we can rest in the fourth quarter. So yeah, I mean, you've got the names. Lad is pretty damn expensive. He had a huge game against New England, 8 for 94 and 2. You've got the backfield with Dobbins. Not really getting to Herbert, but it's not anything he's doing wrong. There's just a lot of cheap quarterbacks there. And so for me, they should be ready to roll. I actually used the Chargers on the tail side in my betting Discord. I do like them in the game. I just don't love the price points on their main weapons. So interested team, but they didn't jump out to me just price wise.
Yeah, see, I don't know if I'm wrong. I don't know if that was like a sarcastic question or telling me I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, let me know. That'd be great information regarding Ross. But yeah, Coach S, Bengals are better than all but Baltimore, Kansas City, and Buffalo, which they beat all three in the playoffs before. Just some bad bounces. No one wants to play Cincy. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. It's not just bad bounces though. Their defense was terrible.
I mean, they deserve everything that happened to them. They blew it.
Defense was terrible through the first 3 quarters of the season, and they started to turn it around recently. What else was I going to mention here? Oh yeah, no, I just think that the Chargers are one of those spots that I don't think people will get to. And McConkey, I don't hate Disley. Palmer's out. It just makes this more of a concentrated offense than it already was against the Raiders team that is dead, right? Like, I mean, they're toast. So, and the secondary is no good for them. They lost Max Crosby for the year. They don't have a quality pass rush. They didn't even have a good pass rush beforehand, which is surprising. So I like that spot. I think it's a bit of a sneaky area or angle that you could hit in the 4 o'clock window. Are you doing anything with the Raiders with Amir Abdullah ruled out?
No, not for the Raiders. I'll keep it to the big 2. I'll call them on the outside. Obviously, you want to pay up at tight end. You've got Bowers. You want a mid-range wide receiver. You've got Myers. Not getting to O'Connell. Not getting to the backfield.
We're gonna crush 700 likes, dude. You always you always shortchange.
No, I don't.
You always shortchange.
I've been right on it. I may have shortchanged here. And we had a super chat from I don't know why I like his name, Crab Pit. Nice, very generous. Atoning for my sins on this beautiful, messy week 18. Thanks for you guys do. Winning me plenty of money. Good luck to everyone, even the Goblins. I appreciate.
That's an important thing to add for
huge distinction. Like today. Even the Goblins, and some are out there. We still root for you.
Appreciate you guys. For sure. I'd go to Bowers here just because he's Brock Bowers. Maybe a little Jacoby Myers, but for me, it's Chargers and then Bowers on the other side.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the Raiders, it's 2 guys, and the Chargers, again, there are pieces I wish they were a little cheaper because they didn't show up much in my lineup so far.
All right, just seeing if there's any news I've missed here. But I think so far we're good. We're going to have inactive shortly. That's why I stick around. Matt Kajeski, Eric Lindquist coming up right after this. You won't want to miss it. Those inactives are going to be important. I think we have our finger on the pulse of what most of these inactives will look like. And there's also a big 4 o'clock window. So if you're playing today, make sure you don't set your lineups and leave because that could be a problem. Seattle and the Rams. McDonald wants to win this game. He's already said it's important for them to get to 10 wins. Another incentive is Gino has a big financial incentive if he gets to 10 wins. I don't really think I love the stacks here. You are going to be having some Gino against some backups. I actually like JSN more, and I even like Zach Charbonnet here. I don't think the stack is my favorite. Amazingly, Geno's only thrown 17 touchdowns this season. Kind of shocking. But if
Yeah,
you
that's-
count all of his red zone interceptions, he's a 40 touchdown pass guy.
Yeah, I mean, Seattle's been a weird team this year. They listen, look at the line. So there's some things to like here. Metcalf, JSN. You've got the pass catchers, even maybe you pay down at tight end. Charbonnet. Honestly, Seattle, of the teams that have nothing going on, they might be one of the best spots to target.
Yeah, because they actually want to win. They have no incentive to win as far as playoffs go. But nah, I like them. I like all these guys. I have no problems with Geno, really. I mean, like Geno, Metcalf, JSN, all those guys look. I even think Noah Fant is fine in a spot like this. No issues with Noah Fant. All of these guys seem 100% okay to me, Ben. So that's the way I view it right now. And outside of that, this is really just on both sides of the ball. Seattle, I think you can pick your poison, right? Priorities for me, JSN, Charbonnet, and then Metcalf. I still don't know if Metcalf's fully healthy. I guess we'll find out. But I think Charbonnet is in a good spot today, and he's not getting maybe we're worried about Kenny McIntosh getting more work, but I don't think that's a huge deal. So I'm okay going to some Charbonnet. Not a priority across the slate, but I like him in this game. On the Rams side, you know what worries me? Does Blake Corum get all of it, or does Ronnie Rivers get worked in?
Yeah, it is tricky. I think most people, and it would be my guess as well, think that it'll probably be Blake Corum's, but I don't know if that's a given. And again, he's competing with a lot of other backs in these same ranges. Ray Davis would be one, Tracy would be another. Obviously, if you want to pay down, Shipley and Michael Carter. I like Seattle side more than the Rams side. I don't really want to mess around. Certainly not with the Rams pass catchers, and even with the Rams backfield. I think this is a little difficult to project. Like,
I'll mess around with the Rams pass catchers for sure.
You will?
Yeah. Yeah, like if I'm jamming studs and I need some 3K guys, I have no problem going to Tutu Atwell. I think Jordan Whittington is viable.
Oof.
It's not really that gross though. I mean, let me put it to you this way. First of all, it's Jimmy Garoppolo. There's nothing special about Jimmy G anymore, but he's not a guy you've never heard of. If you were to look at this team and go, all right, how concentrated are their touch opportunities for the Rams? Well, okay, you have Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, and Kyron Williams, who, I mean, they command like 90% of the weekly opportunities in this offense. So this team still has to play 4 full quarters, 60 minutes. It's not like Stetson Bennett, right? It's Jimmy G. He's not good, but he's not awful. So if you're telling me that you are taking away 3 guys who make up like the entire offense, I think there's value there when you're talking everybody else being virtually minimum salary.
Yeah, I mean, the tricky thing with the team like the Rams is there's within the game, there's still a lot of, I find still a lot of unknowns of which of these receivers emerges. I really think there's still too many of them. I would rather I know it's somewhat of a loaded question, but you've got these Rams pay downs. Would you put Dotson ahead of them, or would you have these guys potentially ahead of?
I think I'd put Dotson ahead.
Okay.
But if you consider the fact that, like, if DeMarcus Robinson, I don't know how much Robinson's going to play because those are your 3 full-time starters. But I just think guys like Atwell and Johns, sure, you're going to have to try and figure that, like, yes, you're trying to hit a moving target. But I still think like Atwell, Johnson, and Whittington are going to play a lot of snaps today. Like I'm pretty confident that those guys are just going to be out there a lot. So with that in mind, with all of them being basically the bare minimum, and a 10 spot from one of them could be enough for you today if all of your other guys pop off and you were able to pay up for everyone.
I get it. Listen, I'm not saying someone couldn't have a game. I just have a tough time navigating who.
So do I. But at the same time, if you really want to go all the way down to 3K guys, give me the 3K guys on a team. Well, the Eagles are similar to that though, right? Because all of their target share, all of their volumes concentrated essentially around 3 guys, right? 4 if you include Hurts and he's out. So these two teams are super similar in that respect. They're taking guys off the field that get all of the opportunity. That's why these are the two teams that I think are interesting. Whereas with Kansas City, to me, it's much murkier because that ball goes everywhere.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Anyway, that's where I'm at on the Chargers or Rams. You guys do what you want with it, but if I'm just kind of telling you how I think it's played, I expect those guys to be on the field a lot today, a lot. And it wouldn't shock me if that ends up being the case. So I'll be spraying there a little bit for sure. Arcatelza says, sounds like a guessing game. Yeah, but it's week 18. It's week 18 and it's a guessing game, but I don't think it's a guessing game at who's going to be on the field. It's just who's going to, can they produce? Talk to me about this next one, Miami and the Jets. I'll stick to my guns here. I just really don't like a Tyler Huntley-led offense, even after what we saw against the bad Browns team last week.
Yeah, I mean, clearly Miami needs this game to put some pressure on it and maybe sneak in. Of the teams that need it, they're the one obviously that's most likely to lose just looking at the lines. I'm with you. It's just been a disappointing year for a lot of reasons. And at the top of that is just not a really good offensive scheme. And their weapons on the outside, everybody's banged up and the offense is not working. With Tyler Huntley, I don't want to do anything with this. I actually have a good amount of Jets defense.
So do I, 2,600. Yeah. Achane, I don't really want the pay up there, even though it's a good matchup against the bad Jets run defense. I don't love it. Simply don't. I actually like the Jets to win this game.
Yeah, I mean, they're slight favorites, which is kind of crazy.
Oh, are they? I bet them as dogs.
That's just on the sidebar. I don't have OddsShopper up right now, but it's a near pick 'em. I can say that much.
Yes, for sure. I think I bet him at like plus 105 on the money line. So there's that. I have some tepid interest in Aaron Rodgers today. All right, you want me to get into the shit-filled waters with you guys? Here we go. Aaron Rodgers, this could be his last game. He acknowledged it earlier in the week. He's thrown 499 touchdowns. Devontae Adams has mentioned that he would like to catch that 500. I think he's caught his like 300 and 400 or something like that. But also, I just don't think this Miami defense is stellar. I don't think they're bad. I don't think they're great. I'd say middle of the road. They've dealt with injuries as well. I probably don't get to Rodgers, but I really don't mind Devontae Adams in the final game and potentially the final game he ever plays with Aaron Rodgers. I could just, if you want me to dig into like this, I wouldn't even call it incentives, but if you wanted me to dig into a narrative, I could see a Devontae Adams game today against Miami.
Again, we talked a lot about this is a slate where I think there's some opportunity to bet on something. I don't want to say gut feel because I think it's a very slippery slope, and I still, at the end of the day, strongly lean on the numbers and the data and the tools. But I see the path that you're saying there, and this is the type of game the volume could be there, and we've seen that in recent weeks. I mean, this isn't something that can't happen or could happen for the first time. This has been happening. Rodgers made a lot of people a lot of money just a couple weeks ago with a monster performance, him and Adams. So you want to go there? I think you absolutely could. Not my favorite spot in the world, but I totally see the path.
Eagles inactives: Hurts, Slay, Devontae Smith, AJ Brown, Nakobe Dean, Barkley, Zach Bond, Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Jalen Carter. Yeah.
No surprises.
No, but that's like a lot of really good players that are not.
Yeah, I would hope so.
Yeah, a lot of really good players, man. Yep. Scares me about Shipley a little bit, but at the same time, they just have such good offensive line coaching. Oh, Shipley's active then. I didn't even think about that. His name wasn't on the list. Shipley's active.
Yep, he's active. Dobbs is out. Watson in. Mooney out. Hunter Henry out. Chig is in. So some news, like I said, Eric and Gajeski, they got you covered in just a few minutes. Don't go anywhere.
Coach, I said Trey Lance to start. It doesn't change much, though, to me. Devontae Adams for me here. Anybody else? You looking at Breece Hall or Garrett Wilson?
No.
Anyone? No. Niners in Arizona. All right. I like Ricky Pearsall a bit here. I liked him on the showdown slate earlier in the week, or was it last week? I don't remember. Thinking, hey, they're out of it, but they're still going to try and play. Let's see if they work Pearsall in more. And they absolutely did. He became a priority, a focal point in this offense. Obviously, it's Josh Dobbs, which, you don't feel great about, but Arizona's secondary is not the strength of this defense. I like Pearsall at 4,100. No Purdy, no Deebo Samuel. I don't know if Kittle plays. Wouldn't shock me if they sit him as well. Pearsall, and I think you could make an argument for Juwan Jennings as two viable options. And on the other side, Michael Carter, Trey McBride. I'll sprinkle on Marvin Harrison too. I actually really don't hate this game at all.
No, this is a good game. And yeah, I mean, Dobbs is the actual minis flat four. He's got weapons that you can pair. I like this game for two teams that have nothing going on, but I think, even the total is pretty healthy for this slate. And you have Michael Carter. So I'm not sure. You mentioned some of the bigger names like Kittle. I don't think I really want to do that. I'm not getting to the Niners
I said Kittle. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't play. He's questionable.
That's what I mean. I'm saying even if he does play, I'm a little apprehensive about going to him. I'm going to stick to Juwan Jennings and Pearsall and Dobbs. And then on the other side, I think that Michael Carter is going to have an opportunity. I'm not saying he's going to get all the work, but I think he's going to have the lion's share of it. So these are some really good pay down options. And if you build a little mini game stack here with a couple on each side, or even at like a 2-1, you're picking, 6-7K average. You get rid of your defense. You have plenty of money to do it. And so this is also a game, I haven't finalized my last one of the regular season, my anytime touchdown card, but I have a feeling I'm going to have someone from this game. Trey McBride finally got his last week, but I think Michael Carter and these Niners guys are very live to find the end zone. So for me, that's where I'm at. Actually, I do have one thing on that side, unless you have anything for this game.
No, go ahead.
I was saying, I am going to build out my anytime touchdown card, and how I do that, I go right to OddsShopper. We've just had, it's the start of the new year. The influx of a lot of you guys and people checking out the tools over there has been unbelievable. But if maybe you just found us in week 18, maybe you haven't done it for 2025, if you haven't used what we have going on for Portfolio EV, it's worth your time to just get informed. Maybe you say, you know what, this is something I'm going to do the NBA playoffs, or I'll keep it in mind. But go over to OddsShopper and check out these tools. What they are doing, cutting edge stuff. We've got now mass entry for Hard Rock. I mean, some of these books where you're like, oh, I'm in a state and I only have one book. We have you covered. And you can get bets in all day, every day. Simple and easy. It doesn't infringe on what you're doing. And I've said this throughout the year. I've had some rough DFS weeks, and then I've had some good DFS weeks. But the ability to have some money coming in on the betting side pretty regularly, it just gives you that floor. And Portfolio EV is designed to do that because it's a volume-based betting service where you're getting these small edges and you're compounding it really quickly. And a 1%, a 2% edge really adds up. And I know, obviously, Luffy, I'm preaching to the choir with you now that you're the hockey savant, but it's there. So
I just bet what they give me, man. I've had amazing results over the past 3 months, like just fantastic results. And it is buoyed, with DFS, it's a very up and down, sometimes a long-term down before and up. With this, it's just a steady trend, a steady climb upwards. I showed my December results the other day, and it speaks to it. Like we had a lot of comments in the OddsShopper Discord saying like, look, those are my results where I'm saying, don't give up. If you have a couple bad days, you start off early, finish strong, because you will. And we had someone, who was it? Was it Rabashua, I think, who's been with us for a while on the DFS side, saying he's like, look, this has buoyed my DFS losses just until you get that big win. And it's like, dude, I'm still profitable. Despite that's been one of the biggest things for me is that DFS, man, it's especially NFL where you only have it a few days a week. It's tough, it's tough. And you're just trying to thread that needle maybe once or twice a season. With this, it's just a steady climb upward. If you ever want to check it out, links in the description and the chat. My DMs are open, and Ben's always in the Discord, which is included with it. You have any questions, a lot of sharp people in there as well. So yeah, man, check it out if you haven't done so yet. You'll love it. I place 100+ bets from my phone, everything from my phone. every single day. I have 51 bets placed already, and I've been prepping for football all morning. So check it out. Hit us up if you have any questions. Before we go, Ben, quick thoughts, and Matt and Eric can cover this as well, on Minnesota and Detroit. Sickest game of the season, 57-point total, FanDuel only on this slate. But you've got Jefferson, you've got Gibbs, you have, because no Montgomery, there's so many ways to play this. This throws a wrench into the works if you're playing the full slate.
Oh yeah, I mean it is the game of the year. I'll say this: I bet Detroit. I think they're gonna get it done. It's amazing that it came down to this. When you're 14-2 for both teams, you would think you'd have the division shown up, but I think Detroit handles it at home today, and for that reason, St. Brown and Gibbs would be of all the great options on both teams. Those would be the two that would stand out for me.
All right, I bet Vikings +3.
Well, we should be somehow we can't both lose, but we'll see what the sim cooks up. But yeah, I'm against you. I'm on the Lions.
Gibbs and Jefferson are the two spots. St. Brown. Honestly, if you just ended up game stacking this, I don't think anyone would fault you for it. And Greg and I did it on Wednesday's single lineup sim show. It's actually been not hard it's not hard to game stack this on FanDuel. Pretty flexible salaries over there.
Yeah, again, a lot of value. So this is that's a can't miss game. Even if you're not betting it, that is one to make some time for.
Yeah, man. Hey, you guys are the best. We got over 800 likes, so shout out to the people getting it done as always. Thank you. Thank you for being with us. It's been an amazing season for those of you guys that hang out and make this possible. I mean it. We'll be back for the playoffs, but it's sad that this is the last day of the regular season and the schedule starts to dwindle a bit after this, but don't go anywhere. Matt Kajeski, Eric Lindquist coming up next. Follow Ben, Jazzraz Bets, on the Twitters right under his name there, and me at Laffy_D. We'll see you guys back here for the next one. Peace.
I'm going to take that as a yes. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Week 18 NFL Live Before Lock. I'm Eric Lindquist. You can follow me at Eric Lindquist over on X. Joined, as always, with my good friend, my friend, Matt Gajeski, Matt_Gajeski over on X. Whew, we got some football going on, mainly tonight.
Yeah, the D3 National Championship. I'm very excited for it.
I'm, of course, talking about the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Detroit Lions in Detroit. Going to be an epic game. You best believe I am playing FanDuel today, so I can get myself, dip my toes into that pool for sure, but I'm excited for that one. However, we've got a main slate over on DraftKings that does not include that. It has a lot of moving pieces. Going to be a fun one. We'll cover some of the actives and actives as we get going here. Hit that like button for us here. We got Jordan Klein behind the virtual turntables. I'm excited for it. How the turntables. Anyway, we got ourselves lots to get to. So without further ado, Matt, would you like to dive into the actives and actives with me?
Sure. Seems like you have a good handle on them.
Sure do. Sure do. D3 National Championship, who's in that?
What is it? Mount Union and North Central, who hasn't lost at home in 6 years.
Are they playing at home?
No, they play on a neutral field, but they're just extremely good.
Gotcha. All right. Well, we got Miles Sanders active here, which matters because the Carolina Panthers couldn't run the ball last week. Can they run the ball better with Miles Sanders this week? I guess we'll find out. Xavier Legette also going to be in for them. Drake May, he is expected to start here. So we're going to get Drake May out there, which is good because I have New England +3. We got Kenny Pickett. He's going to be active, but Tanner McKee still getting the start there on the Philadelphia side. We also are looking at inactives from their side. Barkley not playing, Brown not playing, Devonta Smith not playing, Lane Johnson not playing, the entire offensive line basically there, and then Jalen Carter on the defensive side. As for the Packers, I think this one's actually pretty interesting. Christian Watson in, Romeo Doubs out. I think we're going to be paying attention to that one here as things update on the projection side. Hunter Henry going to be inactive on the New England side of things. Cade Otton also inactive for Tampa Bay. That matters. A team that still has something to play for. We'll talk about those incentives and all the other things as we go along, although incentives are a little bit overrated in my opinion. Darnell Mooney inactive on the Atlanta side of things, more of a condensed target share you could look at for Ray McLeod and Drake London there. Almost said Drake May again. Juwan Johnson, active for New Orleans. They are absent anybody who can catch a football, so that's kind of something that stands out. And Tony Pollard, he has some incentives that exist across the entire industry, coming off of mega chalk of Tajay Spears. No, we don't have to think about that so much. Tony Pollard, he's going to be active for Week 18. Oh, yeah, and Trey Lance. He's going to be starting at quarterback for the Cowboys. I don't know if that was expected or not, if it was him or Cooper Rush, but we're going to get a look at the somewhat mobile Trey Lance here today. If he plays an entire game, I think that's a fun talking point. But anything else you wanted to add here before we dive in, Matt?
Nope, most of that was expected.
At the quarterback position, we start here at the top where we don't have a lot of the normal names, the Jalen Hurtses, the Josh Allens, because they are not going to be playing football. If they are going to be playing football, it's not going to be for that long here. He's going to start the matchup, Josh Allen is, but then we know Mitch Trubisky going to be taking over here. So it's all about Baker Mayfield in a game where he is supposed to be force-feeding Mike Evans. Mike Evans going to be nuclear chalk here at the wide receiver position. He's your only quarterback really available to talk about outside of course, Jaden Daniels, who is going to be in a game that kind of matters for Washington, ? They'll be scoreboard watching. There's going to be a lot of that going on today. So I guess he is there. And we saw what that upside can be there in a primetime spot against Atlanta. How do you feel about the 7K and above quarterbacks? And I mean, how much Baker Mayfield is too much Baker Mayfield?
I'm not sure there's a number. He would have to come in pretty owned, which he's not. He's only 10% in our projections. And Daniels is only 6. So I think you can pretty comfortably play both of these guys in lineups and not really worried about it. Especially with Daniels, you have an incredibly easy matchup against Dallas at this current iteration of their defense. And you mentioned the motivation stuff for Tampa Bay. They're literally playing a JV team with everything on the line. And yeah, they might run the ball with Bucky Irving, but honestly, your best path to victory against Tampa Bay right now is probably still throwing it to your best player. This is like the one instance where I do think incentives align with game plan. Normally incentives are nonsense. If you were to just bet against incentives over the last 3 years, you would have made money, which is contrary to everyone's popular belief. But in this game, you have a highly motivated Tampa Bay, and the best path to victory is throwing it to your best player who actually has something to play for. So yeah, that's the only one that makes sense to me. I'll be firing up a lot of Baker, especially when he's only 10% owned.
Yep, makes it super, super easy to look at Baker Mayfield and say he's awesome, but Jaden Daniels has been awesome himself. It's just a question of like, they're a team that is going to be in the playoffs no matter what. What's their motivation to really let Jaden Daniels out there and run for 127 or 81 like we've seen the last 2 weeks? Those were games that you had to have it there in Washington, and, well, they ended up finding ways to have it in both of those spots. And I just think we got to look at Jaden Daniels in kind of a different light this week than we've had the previous 2 weeks. Does he still have an upside? Sure, but now we're going to have to compare him to a bunch of 4K crappers for lack of a better term here. I think we're going to be rotating around some of those. And I just think if it's not going to be Baker Mayfield, where the incentive is obviously there to go out and chuck it around the lot, it's harder for me to land on Jaden Daniels, but it's kind of intriguing to see 5-6% with that rushing upside, what that can be. Is there any kind of a take you have about Jaden Daniels? Do you think he'll be a full go in this spot?
I think he'll be a full go. Nothing really there.
Okay. Just thought I would throw it out there. Again, these are not my favorite kind of things to be talking about at any point in time where it's just like, oh, are they going to do things differently? Like, they're on the football field. I think he plays the entire game. I can't imagine many scenarios that he's not still a good tournament option, but I just think that relative to some of the cheaper quarterbacks that we have here on the slate, or getting into this next tier of quarterbacks, it's interesting because Kyler Murray, how many times can you possibly get burned by a guy over the course of this season? Kyler Murray, do you know how many times he has gone for over 30 fantasy points this season?
I know he's gone over 20 a number of times. 30, I'm going to say 1, because I actually have looked at this recently, and it's not very high. Maybe 0.
0 on DraftKings.com. 0 times.
Yeah. He's over 20 plenty of times, so it kind of depends what you're looking for. But yeah, I mean, at his price, 30 is a lot better than 20, but he's only 6K, so it's not like it's that crazy of a price tag to pay off.
San Francisco, obviously, they haven't had anything to play for the last couple of weeks other than figuring out how they're going to handle Brock Purdy, and now his elbow's dinged up, and now we're going to be getting, a swish motion, just a ridiculous situation there for sure. It's not going to be fun. You got to be paying attention to some of the news there on who is going to be in, out for Arizona and San Francisco, and I think you got to be paying attention to that news with the Rams and Blake Corum, Ronnie Rivers, that situation, and Kansas City, who's going to be playing. I mean, it could get really, really dicey with late swaps. So be ready. Handle the number of lineups you can where you could be making some swaps based on news, because there might be a couple of surprise actives or inactives for that window of games. But I mean, Kyler Murray, probably a full go in that entire game, 6K flat. He's showing up in the Sims ad nauseum. As for Bo Nix, he's going up against Kansas City. I think this is definitely a spot that if you wanted to roll out a little bit of Bo Nix, sounds great, but still find it more intriguing to go sub 6K. And if I were hand building, I don't think I would land on either of these guys, Bo Nix or Kyler Murray. Definitely would want to be getting into the 4K range a little bit more. How are you handling them on today's slate?
I don't have a lot of this range. The most is Bo Nix, and just basically on the motivation stuff. And when I say motivation throughout the show, I'm never going to be talking about contract incentives unless it's Mike Evans. When I say motivation, I mean a team with something to play for.
Right.
Denver, obviously, winning they're in. So you're going to see full go Bo Nix against a lot of backups for Kansas City, which puts him far and away the best player in this range, in my opinion. Otherwise, Kyler, I think, is okay. I don't love his ownership. On a slate where we do have a fair number of games, obviously, the only ones we're missing are the 2 from yesterday in the Sunday night game on DraftKings. To see him come in nearly 20% owned is pretty high. Yeah, the matchup shouldn't exactly be difficult. They don't have anything to play for, but that's not a new thing. They've been eliminated for a couple weeks. It's just tough for me to click his name at the ownership. It's not even the price. It's not the projection. It's just there's so many other places you can potentially go on this slate.
Yeah, Kyler, because of, I mean, it would be so ironic to have this be the Kyler Murray game, like a meaningless game. Week 18, he puts up a 35 spot and goes and runs around the lot like he's, a kid on the playground, which is kind of what Kyler Murray looks like all the time playing football. But 6K flat for him. This is a pretty low price point. Trey McBride, one of those tight ends that is showing up ad nauseum, him and Brock Bowers a ton in the Sims today, which I think makes a lot of sense. You got Brock Bowers. We'll talk about the Malik Neighbors thing too at the wide receiver position, because I do think there's a little bit of hand-in-hand work that is going to exist that I talked about on my betting video from a couple of days ago. Rookie records, but also tight end record. There's a tight end record there for Brock Bowers. I think that might be a little bit more incentive-laden to me, just in the back of my head as a competitor, where Brock Bowers might want to get 9 balls here for that. But hey, it's baked into projections. I'm just going to bring things up because they're fun and interesting rather than I'm actually doing something about it. So I think Matt and I both bringing things up, the same things up at times, but just maybe a little bit different path that, from what everybody else is saying on Twitter and things of that nature. Sub 6K though, we got Herbert and the Chargers. The Chargers are a tough one for me to get a gauge on what I want to do today. I'll just stop there. First off, Chargers, do you think they play this game completely straight up?
Well, they're going to be sort of watching the previous games.
Correct.
So I don't know. You could potentially get some leverage by people not playing this game and being scared, and then they do have to go all out and win a game. So I'm going to play Herbert as if he's just normal full go out there. And if they end up sitting their starters, I'm just going to take that L. This is straight up, but we don't know how motivated they're going to be because they're going to be watching games from earlier in the day. If they do play full go, they're playing Vegas. So, I mean, you really can't draw up a better matchup than that. So, yeah, I mean, I would ask yourself, are you comfortable taking on extra risk and having a portion of your lineups be stone dead if the Chargers don't have anything to play for?
I think it's going to be easy to swap. I think it'll be easy to swap with 5 games in that afternoon window. I think the right way of saying this is I'm just going to be able to find ways on 2 players. Like if you see Ladd McConkey inactive, if you see Quentin Johnston inactive, if you see stuff like that come down the line because they have nothing to play for, that's one thing. But otherwise, I want to play Ladd McConkey. I want to play Quentin Johnston. I want to get to this team against the Vegas second teamers. No Max Crosby on the other side. So many good things if you're the Chargers out there. And yeah, getting J.K. Dobbins going again here, that's important. But also, it could end up being J.K. Dobbins completely gets bubble wrapped. I think that's probably the better way to go about it. And Kamani Vidal is actually somebody that has some pass catching prowess, would actually have some upside. Hassan Haskins, I would assume, would be getting a lot of the groundwork, had 8 carries against New England last week. So it's something I'll have in the back of my mind, but I'll probably just kind of react to it as we come to it. Once again, this is a great late swap opportunity. I think Kansas City especially, I want to know who's going to actually be on the field the most. I think paying attention to Hollywood Brown, whether or not he's going to be active or inactive. I think he'll be active. I think they want to get him reps, but how many? That's going to be something I'm paying attention to a lot in that afternoon window. We'll get there, of course, as we walk through all of these positions. Let's go to other quarterbacks that we might have some interest in. And the 5K range is kind of an interesting one because obviously Herbert brought him up from the get-go to talk through the Vegas stuff. Bryce Young, they've had no semblance of the running game the last week. Well, 1 week basically it is, but you got Miles Sanders back there, somebody that Sims really, really like. Again, we could see him get a lot more work. There was nothing happening with Blackshear. There was nothing happening with Boone. So you might as well just roll out Miles Sanders. And I mean, you're paying him $1 bajillion anyway. Get some use out of him. Drake May, 5,700 against the second teamers for Buffalo. You've got Caleb Williams, so disappointing. Green Bay kind of going to be playing this one straight up. Aaron Rodgers, does he have one more for the old Gipper? We'll find out. I don't know. There's so many different ways that you can play this range, but my favorite by far is Michael Penix going up against Carolina. I think Atlanta just going to be a team that I think I'm going to be over on across the board, whether it's Bijan Robinson, whether it's Drake London. You got Darnell Mooney out. I think that helps things out a little bit as well. And yes, of course, Kyle Pitts at super low ownership because I hate myself. How are we feeling about the 5K range? Lots of places to go in tournaments.
I have interest in almost everyone in this range. We already talked about Herbert. I think Bryce Young is interesting. They're just at a point, even though they're dead, where the development of Bryce Young is going to cause them to play all out, really, until they get a final answer on him. And as long as Thielen's active, that brings me into at least a little bit of Bryce Young interest. There's only a couple. Maybe it's more interesting to talk about the guys I don't have interest in because there's a few of them and there's a lot more I have interest in. Drake May, this comes from playing time uncertainty. There's some weird comments coming out of New England. I wouldn't be surprised if people are just making too much of this, but we don't know. And with so many options, I don't really feel the need to take on that risk. Carson Wentz against Denver, who is playing all out in this game. Perhaps the number one defense in football, like a top 5 unit with a cast of backups. He himself is not very good, so I will not be clicking his name. But just about everyone else I have at least tepid interest in, even Aaron Rodgers. I'm trying to put my biases aside after, getting it right last week, actually, surprisingly. But you could talk yourself into stacks with just about anyone. Rodgers playing Miami. Caleb Williams, this team is not going to be phoning it in. They need to work on his development with the receivers. Geno Smith playing the backups for LA. I don't love his ownership. He's coming in at 10%. I think a lot of that is just people boosting DK Metcalf and JSN incorrectly based on some semi-attainable incentives. Mitch Trubisky, I don't know how long he plays because Josh Allen has that consecutive starts thing he's going for. And then I'm fully with you on Penix. I would add Flacco in there as well. 2 players that should be throwing the ball just based on their profiles. Matchups are easy for both. You're kind of buying low on both after we haven't seen them perform as expected. Those are probably my 2 favorite in this range.
Yep, mine too. I like Flacco. I like Penix. These are going to be 2 guys I play a ton of, and it is just kind of what it is. Michael Penix, he's still figuring it out on the fly. Probably should have pulled the trigger on this a little bit sooner, although I guess everything happens in its own time based on what you need. And Atlanta needed a change at quarterback. It was like, 9 picks to 1 touchdown over the course of 3 weeks there for Kirk Cousins. Things went south quickly in a very quick fashion. I do think Michael Penix has the ability to go out in a game that they want to win, go out and run a little more than we've seen. He's had 4 carries in his first 2 starts, a grand total of 6 yards cumulatively, 3 in each. I think that's going to be something that probably could go up in a spot where, again, you're trying to do everything you can to win that game and you're scoreboard watching along the way, although pretty bleak for Atlanta. Let's get down into the sub 5K range here, and I'm still waiting for some of the projections here to get updated so we can talk about Trey Lance at 4,700. This is a guy that once upon a time out of North Dakota State gets acquired there by San Francisco. He ends up getting the reins, breaks his leg very early on. I believe it was the first game or second game of the season there for San Francisco. And everything goes south as it ends up somehow turning over to Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy was the future there for San Francisco. Trey Lance gets traded last year at the beginning of the year, and we're finally going to see him. He's had all of 7 pass attempts this entire season, all cleanup, mop-up duty kind of situations. Trey Lance is at least going to run a football around as well, and I think at 4,700 against Washington, that's at least interesting to me there for tournaments. Curious to see where his ownership lands on. We had Snoop Huntley. Yes, Tyler Huntley up there at 4,800 against the Jets. Somebody that I think is surely in play. I don't think I'm going to be firing up any Joe Milton, considering Drake May going to be getting the start there. So yeah, Milton being active, that is definitely something to be paying attention to on the New England side. But as I said before, I'm not going to be trying to force in anybody who isn't going to be starting. Actually, I don't even know if I said that. I said that earlier to somebody else. But at the 4K range, of course, we got Josh Dobbs, one of the more popular plays of the entire slate. He probably should be. We've seen him before, multiple starts last season in Arizona and Minnesota. It didn't go well, but he likes to run a football as well, and that has tons of utility. Don't need to stack him up with anybody, just playing him naked all over the place. Oh boy, I have so much Josh Dobbs as well. What are you planning on playing in tournaments sub 5K, Matt?
I'll play a little bit of Josh Dobbs. Based on everything you said, it's more of a roster construction than anything else. I think you broke down his skill set very well. He is a chance taker, and he will run the ball. He's sort of like Jameis Winston in some of the plays he'll make through the air. Then he gives you that little extra ability with his legs. He's basically the only one I have a lot of interest in. The other player you could maybe talk me into here and there is Tyler Huntley for Miami. But even that, I think, is a little thin, just given how well the players in the price range right above him project. I don't know how much Trey Lance is going to play. I'm not saying that as a negative. I don't want to play Trey Lance. I'm actively trying to find something that's going to indicate how much he's going to play. This is a huge decision.
Yeah, it's still worth rolling out a little bit, I think. Again, this is just simply one of those things where at 4,700 for him, with the rushing upside that could exist there, even in cleanup duty, he had 3 carries for 17 yards. He's somebody who just naturally, makes plays out of the pocket, just, not even designed runs, just finds ways of being effective in that part. He's gotten a bad rap, I think, just because, things got changed over for a San Francisco team that was ready to win right away. And Brock Purdy fit that a lot more than Trey Lance did. Trey Lance with the injuries and things of that nature. But I think this is an opportunity for him to go out and potentially against Washington show that he's still an NFL caliber quarterback. And I think that's always worth throwing out a little bit. Again, if you're playing one big lineup, I doubt Trey Lance is the guy that you want to be clicking on with the uncertainty for Cooper Rush coming in. But I do think at 4,700 in large field tournaments, in a portfolio of lineups, certainly somebody who can go out and rush. There is no question that he's got cheap pass catchers along with him too, with the absence of CeeDee Lamb. I think you could look at stacking up Dallas at really low ownership and be pretty happy with the results. Come on to Turpin, man. Every time Turpin touches the football, something good seems to happen. I mean, they got to give Turpin more snaps eventually, right?
I don't know, man. I've been saying that since like week 7 and it's never happened. It's just like at some point you have to stop assuming coaches are rational. And if you were to make a short list of players that are coaches that are irrational, Mike McCarthy might be number 1. I think I would put him number 1. But yeah, I mean, you broke down the Trey Lance situation pretty well. I mean, he's a horrible quarterback. He is absolutely atrocious. He does run though, which is why I agree with you. And I think you can play him. Everything that I can find seems to indicate he's going to play most of the game. So yeah, I agree with your take that we should be at least taking some shots on him. And when I say he's horrible, like, let me contextualize this a little bit. He's in the Aiden O'Connell, Drew Lock,
yes,
Will Levis range. Like, he's not worse than those guys, I think, but that's where he is. Like, we should not be comparing him to Penix or even Flacco. Like, he sucks, but he's not any worse than some of the other quarterbacks that suck.
It's always funny when somebody puts Dookie in chat because it just makes me laugh. He's Dookie from David Fiber. He is horrible. No, I'm not saying that he's good. What I'm saying is that he's like a replacement level quarterback, but like there's so many of those that start around the National Football League on a week in, week out basis that I don't think he's any worse than them. I think you broke that down actually perfectly the way that I wanted to throw it out there. Do you have any Huntley in your life? That is the other question I had here, because going up against the Jets, this Jets defense has not been the 2023 version of the Jets defense, but here in the year of our Lord 2025, I think there's a case for just attacking the Jets every single time out. And I think Snoop does enough here with his legs. He does enough. I mean, I did not think he had the ability to target Tyreek Hill that way. I mean, he's just another one of those quarterbacks that I think here sub 5K that I'm going to have interest in when it's all said and done. Still need to get another Sims run because I want to see kind of what changes with Trey Lance, if anything. But any Snoop Huntley in your life to round out sub 5K quarterbacks?
Yeah, I was interested in him, but I might just move all that over to Lance and addressing one comment. Steve D, Rush will lose his $550K incentive bonus if he doesn't start, in all caps. He needs to play 80 snaps to hit that incentive. That's basically 2 games of NFL football, at least 1.5. So that does not seem, if anything, I think they're kind of just like, well, there's almost no chance he gets it. Why don't we just play Trey Lance? And I don't think that it's any malice or anything. He just has like most of these incentives, it's pretty unattainable. I don't know how they would possibly get off 80 snaps.
Just rapid fire handoffs to Rico Dowdle at the middle, like over and over and over and over and over and over, like it was Marshawn
What's
Lynch.
happening is Jerry Jones in this front office made a horrible decision, one of many that they've made recently, and they traded a pick that was way too high from Trey Lance. Trey Lance got into practice. He couldn't even beat out Cooper Rush. And now, I mean, your hands are kind of tied, but this is the perfect situation to just de-gaff it and throw him out there and see what you wasted your pick on.
See what you wasted your pick on. Incredible. We'll say this. Jeff Williams, $4.99. Why would the Chargers not have anything to play for? Aren't they shooting for the 5th seed? Yeah, there's still something to play for. They're 10-6 here. Them and the Broncos are going to be playing simultaneously. There's a little bit of jockeying position that can occur to some extent. Because yeah, it's just trying to figure out where you would rather be playing, and I think everybody would like to get that 5 seed, right? That's what we're looking at. Because if they lose that game, the Steelers would be locked into 5, and you want to play the Texans. You don't want to play the Bills and Ravens. I'm pretty confident in saying that. So the Chargers, for all intents and purposes, should be playing that game very, very straight up. Because yeah, losing that one would not be great, Matt.
Yeah, I think they are going to. Plus, like, Jim Harbaugh is their coach. He's in the Dan Campbell football guy range. Love those guys. But yeah, I think you're going to see.
He doesn't want to play his brother in the first round either. I think there might be extra incentive there to not be the 6th seed.
Well, I mean, that's huge.
Yeah.
Playing the Texans versus playing the Ravens is a chasm.
Yes, especially this current construction of Houston with all the injuries they've had. So just tough luck. Sometimes injuries suck. And well, this is one of those times. If you're a Houston Texans fan, this was supposed to be the year. Elder, $5. Sims giving me a lot of miles before the update. Do you think it's worth lowering exposure? Giving me 40%, 150 in the main. Always a great question. Pretty easy answer. If you want to go in and fix some stuff, put an exposure cap on it. You can go into that. It's sitting right at the top left portion of, if you pull up the screen, actually, Jordan Klein, it would be so lovely to show them on the Sims tool. Exactly. Oh, you're running a sim right now. All right. Well, that's fantastic. I will show that to you here in a second. Yeah, we just got everything updated. I'm going to be running another sim here in 2.8 seconds. No 11 sin, $4.99. Thank you, everybody, for the super chats. What is their max percent you would want of any player on this slate? Now, I think that becomes a running back question, which is a great segue into the running back situation. Because Michael Carter is definitely the guy that is showing up the most. You have no Trey Benson. You have no James Conner. I think that there is a lot of confidence that Michael Carter is going to be getting a bulk of the work there. And then DJ Dallas, he's been around everywhere. He's been everywhere, man. Seattle primarily, but DJ Dallas, probably going to be your number 2 out there. Tony Jones gets elevated from the practice squad here earlier this week. There's still going to be 3 backs there. And Michael Carter, I know him most from his North Carolina days. He was splitting backfield work with Javonte Williams. They were a 1-2 head, just a ridiculous tandem in college football DFS, which I know Matt is very aware of. But Michael Carter goes to the Jets. He's got a little bit of spunk. He's got some receiving game upside. That's primarily what you're looking at 4,700. I think he's hard to get away from, but he is currently the guy that I have the most exposure to on this slate. I think he's got the most built-in workload. I think he's somebody that we know can pass catch and Kyler Murray dump-offs. That's a nice thing for Trey McBride's life. Got to think it's pretty good for Michael Carter as well. He's currently in 57% of my lineups. He's the guy I have the most exposure to, Matt. Is he somebody that you have as much exposure to as I do?
I definitely will be bringing it down 57%. I don't know where I'm at. I'm in the middle of rerunning things as well. He was still pretty owned for me, but closer to like the 35%. And to answer the question, I think that's about where I'm going to put some exposure caps on running back. And it mainly just comes from alternatives. There's a number of expensive players you can get to that you feel confident in their workload. And for some reason, we kind of anointed Michael Carter, the dusty back we feel most comfortable with. There's a lot of other backs that I think are in equal uncertainty or maybe just a little more uncertain situations that you can throw darts on, especially when you're going to be playing into ownership by throwing Michael Carter out there. Like, I'm not confident this is a backfield that he just dominates today. So yeah, to me, it's mainly just an alternatives thing.
Yep. Definitely going to be somebody that I have a lot of, but yeah, I'm probably going to end up lowering that down as well. There's so much uncertainty. Again, even a guy as popular as him with his projection, which is what the Sims is basing it off of, it is tough to get away from, but I see a case for potentially, I mean, once Tony Jones gets called up there, I mean, that could be some extra work going his direction. I remember when he got acquired at the beat, like there was some best ball rumors in the middle of the summer. It was like, oh, is Tony Jones the guy you need? No, it's not. It definitely was not. And it was always James Conner.
Whoever
But
said
Michael
that,
Carter,
never listen to them again.
yeah, don't do that. Tony Jones Jr., didn't he play for like 2 seconds with Denver, 2 seconds with New Orleans, and now he's here?
Yeah, he went to Notre Dame.
Okay, you know all the Notre Dame guys. Anyway, let's go to the expensive groupings of a running back here. We're Bijan Robinson. He's the guy I can't get away from today. It would appear he is in absolutely everything that I am doing, and I'm just fine with that. Optimal around a third of the time in our boom bust tool as well, which probably I would say underutilized at this point in time. Something that I still think has beautiful utility, and you can get all of that. We'll talk a way you can get everything for free on the Stokastic side of things here. Get the Sims for free for a month as well. The Hall of Fame, get that badge, baby. It's beautiful. Jonathan Taylor, God, you got to think the workload is going to be really, really reduced in a game that Indy has nothing to be playing for. You got some interesting expensive guys that will kind of mix and match here as we're moving along the board, but primarily Bijan Robinson. How you feeling about him today?
Yeah, I feel pretty good. He's in a spot where they need to win and get some help, but the main thing is they need to win. So he should be all out, full go here. And I still have some faith that this offense is going to be better than we think with Michael Penix at the helm. So yeah, I'm pretty in on Bijan Robinson. He's my favorite play at the position, I think, just in a vacuum, not including price.
relative to Bucky Irving, who do you have more of?
Right now, Bijan, I'm still working through a little bit
Yep.
on this on the back end.
As am I. So we got the update pushed here, 45 minutes. We got plenty of time to talk through everything. I'm excited. You're excited. We're all excited, but no Saquon Barkley. He won't be playing football. Jonathan Taylor, we've got a pretty nice workload still projected for him going up against Jacksonville. If that comes to fruition, I get the 8% there, but man, it's hard to imagine that they're going to want to really put the foot on the gas there. Josh Jacobs, yeah, this is going to be a reduced workload in some capacity there. Bucky Irving, going to be the guy that I really get to here at 7,700 when it's all said and done. Don't think there's anybody else to be talking about 7K or above. They're pretty much all zeros from then on out.
Yeah, I'm interested in Jonathan Taylor, which you brought up. You're going to get him at a fraction of the ownership, and people will call into question the motivation, but this is just like your normal situation where a team has to play out the rest of the season with nothing to play for. He's paid to play football, so he should be out there. No issues playing him. Otherwise, it's kind of bleak up here. Jacobs have no interest in. I just don't know what the game plan is going to be like against GB. But, I mean, if you do want to take a shot, he's not going to be even owned at 1%. I just don't even know if he sees his full workload today. I would honestly pretty much doubt that. But, yeah, I mean, we don't have a lot of guys up here.
Yeah, I'm going to have a little bit of Devon Achane. I think when it's all said and done, too, Miami still technically something to play for. So, hey, Miami, fire it up. That Kansas City, I think the Kansas City Chiefs are going to be competitive against Denver for what it's worth. I know it's all second stringers. I know it's Carson Wentz, where, again, we didn't even talk about Carson Wentz at the quarterback position. I have less interest considering he's 5,600 on today's slate. But I do think that he's better than all of the other backups that we've talked about to this point. And I don't know. I think that Denver game ends up playing a little bit more competitive than other people do. The big headache, of course, is that if you don't play Courtland Sutton from the Denver side, what do you do with that backfield, with some of the ancillary pieces, with the tight end position? It's just a disaster to try to string them together with Bo Nix. At least Bo Nix does have some rushing upside, but at 6,400 won't be queuing him up either. Let's work through the running back position as we get further down the board into the 6K range. We've got some interesting ones because Zach Charbonnet, he'll be playing football without Kenneth Walker the third, which we know, the second. Sorry, Kenneth Walker will not be playing football, and Zach Charbonnet has been an absolute Hulk slam every single time in terms of what that workload is. Do they still give him the same workload in a game that Seattle has no playoff incentives for? We will find out. Breece Hall, same situation that we've seen every week, but Breece Hall's gone out and won in a week 18 before. He could definitely do it again. J.K. Dobbins, think you're playing this game pretty straight up here for the Chargers. I know he has some incentives. I don't really care about that. I just wonder if he's going to be getting a bulk of that work, excuse me. And then Tony Pollard, who is pulling 20% purely because he wants that money. There is no Tajay Spears out there. I think he is by far my most uncomfortable click on the entire running back board. Do you feel the same way? And what else stands out to you in the 6K range?
The 6K range has a lot of good tournament options, I think. Charbonnet being one of them, if you think he plays his full role. Kenny McIntosh mixed in more last week, but that was because Charbonnet was a little bit banged up, in my opinion. But we've seen them use Charbonnet in a full workhorse role, so it's volatile. We don't know how much McIntosh will be involved, but there's at least a chance it's full Charbonnet, which will lead me to sprinkling. We know it's going to be basically full Breece, or at least mostly Breece against Miami. It's the same situation we've had with him for weeks now, so I think he's interesting. Dobbins, I will have a little bit of. I think Pollard is too owned based on the incentives, so I don't have as much interest in him. Brian Robinson, even in a game that is still fairly competitive for Washington, I have more interest in than Pollard.
Okay. Who you have more interest in than Pollard?
Brian Robinson.
Brian Robinson.
At ownership, not straight up.
That's what I was kind of curious about. Yeah, at ownership, I get that. I totally get that.
If you're playing cash, I'm not playing Pollard in cash, but if for whatever reason your decision was Brian Robinson or Pollard in cash, it would be Pollard without a doubt. But you have to navigate the nearly 20% ownership versus 1.5.
Well, entering this week, the one guy that I thought was going to end up getting steamed up, who just has not gotten steamed up at all. I was pretty positive he was going to get steamed up too, because there's no Deebo Samuel out there. Juwan Jennings is going to be out there, and he's looked great. Ricky Pearsall, he just had a phenomenal week himself. But Isaac Gurundo, this is a dude who, every time he's on the field, he kind of pops to me. He catches footballs He's a big frame out of Wisconsin, right? Isn't that what you said the other week?
He originally went there and then he transferred to Louisville.
Okay. The guy's a wagon. He might be your Matt's. Well, he's Eric's wagon of the day. That's for sure. If he's going to be sub 10% on today's slate, with all of that ownership going towards Michael Carter in large field, with everything else, and I think Michael Carter is just fine for what it's worth. Isaac Guerendo at 5,900 is my favorite tournament running back, and I don't think it's remotely close. I do think it sucks to have Josh Dobbs be as popular as what he is, but if I'm not going to have Josh Dobbs in some of those lineups, or maybe I do go just Dobbs, Guerendo, and try to absorb all of the rushing touchdowns against Arizona, which could be many because Arizona, I mean, they're awful at stopping the run. They have been all season long, giving up over 125 per game. If I can get all of the carries or a majority of the carries, if they're not going to put Taylor Jr. out there very much because he played 0 snaps basically last week, did not record a target or carry, I like Isaac Guerendo so much. Do you, Matt?
Yeah, I like him a lot too. I'm definitely going to be playing more of the field than him. When we see San Francisco use a back, it's basically just lead back no matter what, unless they have to go to their 6th string. I mean, he's not exactly a high draft pick either. So if you were evaluating players, Guerendo is exactly the kind of guy you would take a look at, especially when you have players on your roster that have really battled health that you might want to move on from sometime soon. I think he'll have a full workload.
Just looks awesome. He looks awesome at ownership as well. I think he looks awesome even like if you were going to be popular, and he's not. So I'm going to play a ton of that. Tyrone Tracy, he has been awesome. This is obviously a much improved situation for Tyrone Tracy, taking on a lot of the second stringers that we're going to see there on the Philadelphia side. Rico Dowdle, they're just going to ride him until the very end, it seems. Rashad White, his workload has been trimmed drastically, although there's a world where Rashad White gets cleanup duty against New Orleans, and that would be extremely tilting. Blake Corum, the Ronnie Rivers thing is going to be very, very important. The late swap that exists, utilize it. Pay attention to news because there's going to be something that happens news-wise that can maybe kind of tip the scales on what you should or shouldn't be doing with Blake Corum, because he's not crazy popular around 6-7%, but he could end up being, if he's active, I'm going to play some Blake Corum for sure. I'm going to be getting to some lower 5K backs here as well, and we'll kind of rotate through all of them here, but let's just stop there for a second. Upper 5s, what do you like?
Upper 5s outside of Guerendo, I think there's a number of guys you can play for contrarian builds. Like Tyrone Tracy should be full go on him. Nothing to suggest there won't be, playing a lot of Philadelphia backups. Same thing with Rico Dowdle playing Washington, except Washington is going to be playing this game a little more straight up. But Dowdle's been extremely efficient. The real problem with them is team total. They're not scoring a lot of touchdowns, so Dowdle needs to get there in creative ways like pass catching. Corum, I think, is just fine. I don't know how Los Angeles views their backup running backs. Like, I don't know if they would prefer to have Corum handle this or Ronnie Rivers, which is why I think there's a little uncertainty with this situation. But I'm even interested in guys like, I don't know, DeAndre Swift. They should be full go in Chicago, although Roshan's involved a little bit. Anytime you have like a starting running back who's in a full go, even if they're on like a bad team, if they're playing it straight up, I'm still going to play those guys. I'm more interested in them than the backups on this slate.
Well, let's talk about a backup in Will Shipley, because this guy's going to be crazy popular. He was once upon a time, I believe, Clemson's finest, Will Shipley. Will Shipley, 4,600 for him. Going to be one of the more popular backs that exists on this slate. But the one a piece of news that I had to pay attention to, Kenneth Gainwell's active, correct?
I believe so. I didn't see him on the inactive list.
I didn't see him on the inactive list either. And that creates a big question mark here. I don't think we want to be playing as much Will Shipley as it would appear the field is. Are you on board with that? What stands out to you here with Will Shipley?
I think he's fine to play. He's not super owned. Like around 10% is okay. I mean, Michael Carter, for comparison's sake, is at 31.5. So there's a very, very big gap. And I kind of think it's just Gainwell active in case of emergency. We have a situation where you can't have that many players inactive. Like, your roster is just not big enough. So some of the players that maybe have a valuable role have to be active. Like, this could be the case with Noah Gray too. Like, you just can't sit that many guys. Otherwise you're forfeiting a game. I kind of view it as that situation. So I'm still interested in Shipley, especially if this might scare people off of it.
Okay. Yeah, his ownership came down for a little bit for what it's worth. So maybe that kind of becomes amended here. I'm working through my final Sims run here, and I feel pretty good about what I'm looking at now. So I'm just going to kind of save this, move on with my life. But I do think that there is a world where we definitely want to be playing a number of these unknowns down here in the sub 5K range, because one is going to pop. And I've got a couple in mind that have no ownership. And obviously these are not projection-based plays. These are going to be guys that I think are at least worthy on a slate like this, where something could tip the scales their directions, and you just want to have a little bit more than the field. The first guy I'll throw out here is Carson Steele, 4,700 here for Kansas City. If you're going to get all of the backups in, they are going to put Kareem Hunt on bubble wrap. They're going to put why did I just forget the hard running guy's name? Pacheco. Isaiah Pacheco's already out. Carson Steele, Samaje Perine's actually played pretty darn well and been important to that football team on some of those passing downs. I think Carson Steele is an awesome tournament play here in the sub 5K range, pulling like 2% ownership. That's something that I definitely want to get to, and it goes with my Kansas City is going to be much more competitive than what it appears books do. So I'm going to have a lot of him, I think, especially on the afternoon slate. Kamani Vidal, this is just simply looking at the Chargers situation. And if J.K. Dobbins is somebody that they want to protect and this ends up being a positive game script, I could see Vidal end up getting a lot more work here against Vegas. And that could end up being something that way surpasses his current expectation, what his projection is at. So it's kind of, again, it's not something I'm saying, oh, damned to the projections or anything. It is simply saying there are some tipping scale situations. But let's get into the Miles Sanders conversation, because he is 5% right now. Sims have us getting an unbelievable amount of Miles Sanders. I think he ends up getting steamed up when it's all said and done. It's a good spot taking on Tampa Bay. It's a good spot as far as what that potential workload could be if they're going to just make him active for the last game after being on IR. How much 4K Miles Sanders do you plan on having here today, Matt?
I don't think as much as you, because I don't know what the workload is going to be. So right now I'm coming in at 3%, and I'm pretty happy with that.
Wow.
I don't think I really want it to be much higher.
That is a spicy meatball. That will be a fade, I think, when it's all said and done.
I don't know. There's a lot of discrepancy on his projection throughout the industry. So I don't think some other places are as hot as we are on him. So I don't know.
He came down hard in the last update, by the way. Came down hard, which I like.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I have no idea how much they play him versus Blackshear. Who knows? He hasn't played in forever. He stinks. Like, why do we think he would be good when those other guys failed last week? So yeah, I mean, we're still out, even with that coming down a lot, we're still out ahead of other places on him. If you think he plays the full role, like, boost him by all means. I am just not as confident that they will use him like that.
I am not very confident either. I'm glad that we had him come down here at our last update, because that was probably the one piece I was the most uncomfortable with. Just as far as it's not that I know better or anything, but I do think that there's going to be 3 running backs who potentially get mixed in there. And why would we want to play a chalky Miles Sanders? That would freak me out for sure. But I guess he's not very chalky here either at the moment. So there's a lot to consider with that play. If he got steamed up, it would not shock me. And that is kind of what I'm most apprehensive about. I would rather have some late swappability, if you would, with those running back positions, with the Michael Carters, the Isaac Garundas of the world for the afternoon slate and move on. Anything else at running back for you, Matt, before we head to wide receiver?
I don't think so. I think we hit on just about everyone. I guess you could talk about the Buffalo situation. There's some tepid interest in a guy like Ray Davis, not expecting to see much James Cook on this slate, but we kind of talked about the 5K range as just a general place that I end up landing a lot. Like Alexander Madison's another interesting contrarian piece in that range. We talked about some of the starters already, like DeAndre Swift. There's a lot of names like this that you can mix into your lineups as contrarian pieces that likely are going to see full workloads. They're just on bad teams, which honestly I'm kind of more interested in than taking shots on these likely timeshares with all these bad backs on teams playing backups.
I agree. I also agree this is a gigantic super chat. Coach S111 Sports, $20. Appreciate you, Coach. Hi, gents. I know this is Coach Talk, but he is to start. I think he can catch passes. Who are we talking about? I have no idea who we're talking about there.
He probably sent this when we were talking about someone specific.
He
and we
just sent it now.
So we were talking about running backs. Miles Sanders? Does he
Miles
catch
Sanders.
passes?
Oh, got it. I think he can catch passes. I mean, that was always like the debate up in Philadelphia on whether or not he could or couldn't coming out of Penn State. And I thought it was a pretty ridiculous thing because it's like, well, if he doesn't catch passes, like, can he still do his job correctly? I felt like he could be a better pass catcher than what he was labeled as. Just didn't get utilized in that offense to do that. But I don't know. Miles Sanders is not very good. I would say he has underperformed relative to his expectations coming out of college by a pretty wide
The best
margin.
pass catching back there is Blackshear. Blackshear played both running back and receiver in college. He played at 2 schools. He started at Rutgers, transferred to Virginia Tech.
Yeah, Virginia Tech is the one I remember the most.
Rutgers, where he caught all the balls.
That's true. That's true. Anyway, Coach, we appreciate you for the super chat. I think that's definitely one that we want to be paying attention to. And if you have a read for it, again, this is probably the one week where I would say go with your heart. Like, go ahead and have some guys rotated in. I'm going to be doing it a little bit with Ronnie Rivers, I think, as well. So is what it is. It's going to feel really disgusting, but that Carson Steele, there's some dusty sub 5K guys that I think really stand out to take some shots on. Josh Chapman, I will make sure I get to that super chat here in a second, but first, we're at the halfway point. Well, 30 minutes left until lock. Hit the like button. That would be awesome, but it would also be awesome if you guys would sign up with one of our 11 partner sites. You can get 1 month of the Sims tool, either in the NBA or the NFL, or hey, maybe the PGA is more your speed. Go right ahead. Get a month of it for free. Now, on the left side of the screen that Jordan Klein is pulling up here, you got yourself Pick'em. On the right side of the screen, you got Sportsbooks. All 10 of those give you an awesome opportunity, including rebet at the bottom 11. Sportsbook number 11 there. It is a sweepstakes sportsbook available in 46 of the 50 United States of America. Check it out. Any one of those sites you signed up at, and they have great offers going along in companion with it. DraftKings, bet 5, get $50 and pick 6 credits. For bet 365, you bet 5, get $150, depending on if you are in a state where you can sign up and get bet 365. If you do, well, make sure you send a support email to support@stokastic.com and get yourself 1 month of the NFL Sims. That'll lead you right up until the Super Bowl right now in the NFL streets. And in the NBA streets, a month right now leads you all the way up to just about the All-Star break. So it's an awesome opportunity to dive in. The water's warm here at Stokastic. Plus, we've seen all of the W's there in the Stokastic Hall of Fame, which I'll talk about here after the wide receiver position. But you sign up, you followed those 4 steps. The simplest thing being send your first settled bet ticket and your welcome email from that site specifically that you sign up at to Stokastic. So that's support@stokastic.com. And when you do, you will get yourself 1 month of The Sims for free in any sport that you specify. So put in that email, hey, I want the NBA. Hey, I want the NFL. And you will be getting that immediately. It's only if you're 21 and over. If you have a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Wide receiver, Matt. Wide receiver. I don't know if you heard, Mike Evans has some contract incentives.
This is the only one I care about because it's in like the historic range. I mean, like he's breaking records with his consecutive 1,000-yard streak. Plus, they're not playing for nothing. They need to win to get in. The best way to win is to throw the ball to Mike Evans. This is the only one that makes sense.
Have you seen props this high all season? This is by far the highest prop we've had on a wide receiver all season long, right?
I don't know what his props are.
Just guess.
I mean, like, it's got to be like 92.5 or something.
Well, it started to come back down for what it's worth. 100.5. It was at like 103.5 for a lot of this week, sitting at 96.5 right now on FanDuel. So I think that that's a little bit more palatable. Just insane. I'm not going to do it. I can't be one of those fish. But from a DFS perspective, man, it is so hard not to click on Mike Evans today.
He's extremely safe. You can always make the argument in tournaments because anyone could outscore him. But at the same time, for safety, role in an offense, competitiveness, he checks literally every box. So, and a slate where there's less alternatives because of some of the motivation for some teams, like CeeDee Lamb is not playing anymore. There's a couple situations like that. So you just run out of other options. Yeah, you could flip the build. You could play Bijan, maybe play 2 stud backs. But the preferred way to build on this slate is just eat the Evans chalk, in my opinion. If you're playing cash, he's the first guy in.
Yep. Cash, click, move on with your life. Brian Thomas, though, looking insanely good as well. Probably another cash option for the people. I'm not playing cash this week. It's weird, too, because this is like the most optimal cash week you could possibly run into, where if you're paying attention to news, if you're good with the projections, life is going to be very easy for you, I think, in the cash streets. Just didn't have time to be able to put it together the way I wanted to. And Brian Thomas there, 7,300. He's going to be a click for me, but probably going to be right around the field. Not going to be taking any kind of a stand. I want to ask you about Malik Neighbors and Devontae Adams, though, because these are kind of the two guys that are pulling, low teens ownership that are so intriguing. Malik Neighbors, week in, week out, an absolute stud. And him and Brock Bowers, there's a little bit of a back and forth that you can see there where if Malik Neighbors goes completely ham, Brock Bowers, I'm probably going to want him in some of those lineups where maybe they're chasing after each other. I got to think, being a competitor, you probably want to set records. And as you're talking about things, I do think like these records and milestones, and I think that they're more interesting to talk about than contract incentives, especially it's like Tampa Bay's trying to win that football game anyway. So Mike Evans is playing it straight up because he should be playing it straight up. Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors have really proven that they're like the best rookie wide receivers that you could possibly ask for their respective teams. I still don't think they're limited. I still think you unleash them both here. And then Devontae Adams, the hand-in-hand thing with Aaron Rodgers, trying to get him a job next year, potentially catching a 500th touchdown ball. Lots of things at play there. I don't know what I'm going to end up with on each of these guys. I'm kind of happy with whatever the Sims gives me, but I mean, Malik Neighbors is probably one of those dudes that you just can't bypass on any given week.
I think I'll end up under on Malik Neighbors right now.
Really?
I mean, you're kind of just betting the narrative with him. Yeah, right now I have 2%, which I'm very comfortable with. Like, what are they going to do so he's at what, a 6-catch deficit to Bowers? Like, how many balls is he going to catch today?
I don't know, but the nice thing about Brock Bowers, no matter what, is that there's the tight end record where it's like 9 catches away. I think that's a pretty cool thing. And I mean, they did that with Kittle. If you remember a couple of years ago, Kittle was like on the verge of breaking a bunch of records and rookie stuff, and they just unleashed him against the Rams in the Coliseum. Just George Kittle is special. Like, I could see that being something for Pierce where it's just Brock Bowers season. He catches a bajillion balls today. And I mean, he's already popular. Everybody's going to click on Brock Bowers, but how about a little bit of a correlation that exists there between both Neighbors and Brock Bowers? Again, I talked about that on the betting video like 3 days ago, covered it pretty in depth where I think that there's something there. I just don't know how I would set that up from a DFS perspective unless I was just hand building, which I'm not going to be doing here today. So Malik Neighbors, I've currently gotten 25% of my lineups and I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah, I'm going to leave it at 2. I mean, he's great. They are playing backups, yes. Some backups for Philly. Some starters are going to be playing for that team.
Yeah.
But I mean, his QB's horrible. He got there largely on like crazy yard after catch stuff, which shouldn't be there. Maybe it will be if the matchup is poor. But yeah, I mean, the correlation and record stuff just doesn't make a lot of sense. His path is just so narrow to get there. And like people fail getting records too.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And that's the thing. That's why I think betting them is ridiculous. But I will say there's something there when you're talking about like, I'll get to more Neighbors and I'll get to more Neighbors Bowers lineups. I'll get to more, the combination of the two. Like I'm going to play Bowers no matter what. It's just simply, I don't know. Again, I'm not going to be doing anything from a DFS perspective. But if I were to build out some hand builds and if I were watching the show and talking through it, I think it's at least interesting to have Neighbors and Bowers together in the same lineups.
I mean, Neighbors already has like a 30% target share. It can't go any higher.
That's true.
Bowers already has like a 26% target share. Like, how can it possibly go higher? Both of these coaches are coaching for their jobs. Like, if they do some dumb shit and give Neighbors 18 targets, like Dable's going to get fired. You know that, right?
Yeah.
Like, if they go
Doug
out
Peterson's
with
going to get fired no matter what. So,
I mean, like, you can't just tank full game plans to get people like. For Bowers, it makes more sense because he already has such a lead on Neighbors. But like, what is Neighbors going to catch 18 passes today? Like, no.
I don't think so either. But if he got he should be targeted ad nauseum as is anyway. So it's more of just like it's already in.
Yeah, project him normally. Same thing with Bowers. It just doesn't make any sense to do these extra boosts. It's all baked in.
I know it is. Matt, I'm trying to have fun. I'm trying to talk through it, and I'm kind of poking
Yeah,
fun
we're
at it
wasting
to some
time
extent.
doing it. So let's talk about tight ends because we have like 20 minutes left.
Wide
You want me to lead the
receiver.
show or what?
6K, Drake London, he's popular. Cortland Sutton, he's popular. 20% on each of them here. Jackson Smith and Jigba, 6,100. Why don't you just tell me about the 6K range match? Go ahead. Go ahead. Have fun. Go ahead. 6K range.
All right. The 6K range at wide receiver is full of a lot of good tournament options. Lad McConkey stands out first and foremost at the top. With Justin Herbert and this team expected to play full go, I have more interest in him just based on the target share and role than players like Terry McLaurin just beneath him, even though Terry McLaurin's been awesome. You just have more baked in, I think, bankable targets than Lad McConkey. Drake London is interesting even at ownership to me because I plan on playing Penix. So at 20%, I still think you can siphon off some of that ownership by playing him with the quarterback. Sutton is a pretty natural play if you're playing Bo Nix, but I'm not going to play him outside of that because he is 25% owned. The Thielen Bryce Young stuff makes a lot of sense to me. That's going to be like a 2% owned stack entirely. And one player I'll come in likely underweight on is Jackson Smith and Jigba, catching a lot of steam with the public loving the incentive stuff.
So we got the 6K range. Cool. That's well done by you. Juwan Jennings, he's popular here. We got Jacoby Myers, sub 15%, DK Metcalf. Seattle's a tough one to get a gauge on. Geno Smith, I think, is going to end up being pretty popular at the quarterback position. You have Jackson Smith and Jigba. You have DK Metcalf. It's a game that is worthless here for Seattle, but there are records in Seattle that Jackson Smith and Jigba would like to beat. DK Metcalf has been very, very complimentary there of a lot of the things going on there. I think playing them is just fine at the 5,600 mark, letting the Sims tool do its thing. Calvin Ridley, I think a little bit over on their 5,400. They're talking about switching between Levis and Mason Rudolph. Lots of stuff I was going to talk about there, but it sounds like we should get to the tight end position. So I'll stop there. Wide receiver, 5K range, go.
Wide receiver, 5K range. Your most owned plays are Jennings, Myers, Metcalf. The players I'm interested in coming in a little lower to the field on are Jacoby Myers, especially because Brock Bowers is apparently getting 26 targets. So screw Jacoby Myers incentive, I guess. Anyway, I think you should be projecting Myers and Bowers normally. And with Aiden O'Connell against a fully healthy, fully intact, fully motivated Chargers defense doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Metcalf and Smith and Jigba all battling the incentives along with Geno Smith. I think they're fine to play. The problem is they're just all really owned. Like Geno's owned, JSN's owned, Metcalf's owned. So for tournaments, I would rather find myself going a different direction. Jennings, we project him for some ownership, but I think he actually might come in a little underweight with all these other players in this range. Quarterback is going to be a problem, but maybe I'm wrong on that because a lot of people are going to be playing Dobbs. I'm not sure if they're going to stack Dobbs or not. What's your take on that?
I think that they're going to stack him with Jennings. I think that's going to end up being a pretty popular single. It's probably going to be the most popular single on the entire slate. However, I think it's one that still stands out. I mean, we're talking about a 20% Juwan Jennings, sub 6K. He's proven to be a number one. And if you play those two specifically together, I like Garundo coming along for the ride. I do have a lot of Dobbs with those two specifically. If you get that tournament winning upside, I think those are the three guys. I don't really have to go crazy with Pearsall. I know that ended up being an awesome game in primetime for him against Detroit. And that leads me into the super chat that I made sure that I, as somebody who manages this show correctly and does a really good job of time management and makes sure that we get all of the questions asked at the same time that we get all the reads done, at the same time that we talk about everything so that we can have no stone go unturned on this program. Josh Chapman, $1.99. Pearsall or Pierce for you? I think Indy is really hard, and I've kind of been saving this one up here as far as Downs, Pittman, Pierce, all are going to be decently popular, but does Downs get kind of downgraded because of what we saw last time out? Because he's sub 10% on this slate. Michael Pittman's the guy pulling double-digit ownership. Look at last week's ownership. It is completely flipped, and obviously, maybe this is just a Michael Pittman situation where we see everybody going his direction, but like, he's asking Pearsall or Pierce. I think Pittman's the best in terms of projection amongst the three. So I'd say, an outside chance of him being the guy. But how do you feel about the Indy wide receivers here relative to Pearsall?
I agree with you. I think Pittman should be tentatively ahead of Downs, Pierce would be my third option if just clicking through them. I think in a vacuum, Pearsall should project a little bit better with all the absences in San Francisco, no Debo, but it's close. I think I'm going to tentatively lean Pearsall for the question. I think for a ranking hierarchy of Indy, we're in agreement.
Cool. That's so awesome that we are in agreement and that we are coming together. Common thread. Good vibes. Making each other happy and building each other up. Sub 5K range. We've got some interesting ones, that's for sure. Talked about Quinn Johnston. I think that ends up being kind of interesting here with the Chargers. But a lot of the chalk existing in the upper range because, well, there's a lot of upside that exists there. I'm going to open up the entire sub 5K board because there's some guys that we can take some shots on and rotate through. I just want to know who you're getting the most of. My guy is Jordan Whittington by an absolute country mile.
Yeah, I like Jordan Whittington. I'm not sure he's going to be super owned either. Just to kind of preface this, I don't have a ton of the sub 5K range. It's pretty easy to pay up, especially if you're using Michael Carter, some of the other guys. But Ricky Pearsall's another player in that conversation. Quentin Johnston, Marvin Mims for Denver. He's more of a sprinkling. And then there's a couple 3K guys I use to flip the build. Whittington is one of the higher owned ones for me. I think you could also sprinkle in a Curtis Samuel. Someone in that range who still might play a little bit. Even Tutu Atwell, like opposite Whittington, I think is interesting. But you save 500 going down to Whittington, who was very involved when we did see him briefly and all the way back in the preseason. So that is, for the most part, where I'm landing.
Anybody on the Kansas City side? Because, I mean, in the event that Hollywood Brown doesn't play, I do think he plays for what it's worth, at least to start off the game. Is there anybody there? Because there's this Nico Remigio character that I've seen a lot of talk about over on X, and I'm curious if you had any takes on him. I don't know anything other than what I looked at on Football Reference.
Yeah, he was a UDFA, a really bad athlete coming out of Fresno State. Didn't really produce a lot there. For whatever reason, Kansas City seems to have a soft spot for these guys that weren't actually any good in college. So I'm not really sure what to make of him. I would be looking at guys like Juju and stuff over him.
Okay, that's what I was curious about. I'm probably not going to end up getting to him when it's all said and done, but there's definitely a tight end that we will get to here that is going to be pulling quite a bit of ownership on the Kansas City side, and you are the perfect person to ask about that once again, because you're extremely talented, you're very good at your job, and I appreciate you and want to build you up here on this program. And speaking of, you can build yourself a nice little portfolio here of lineups in the Sims tool for free. If you guys finish in the top 3 of any tournament, 5,000 or more people over in DraftKings or FanDuel, anywhere where you have the avatar there, go to stokastic.com/HOF. Download one of these beautiful avatars that are on your screen, the 5 sitting down there at the bottom. I don't know, maybe you finish at the top of a tournament. Maybe I finish at the top of the tournament and have everybody build me up and make me feel good about myself here today. Well, that'd be awesome. You have an opportunity to do that when you finish in the top 3, and you can get the Sims tool for free for an entire month to go along with it. We also have these really cool rotating rings that are going to pop up on your screen. You finish and make 25K or more. There are ways that we can get you hooked up with one of these. I know Sean Geesey has 48 of these now sitting in his mansion on the hill. Beautiful stuff there. Kevin Roach, we've got, all of these beautiful rings fired up here for the people. When you have massive wins, the Hall of Fame program, check it out, stokastic.hof, and make sure you tweet your wins to stokastic.hof over on X. Let's finish out with the tight end position here, and of course defense, which Matt never wants to spend time on, but that's just the way that Matt rolls. We're going to do what Matt wants to do here, and we're going to talk about Brock Bowers and Trey McBride pulling nearly half of the ownership at the tight end position here today. I think it's appropriate. I like both, but do you have a favorite?
I like them both too, quite a bit. I don't have a favorite. I'm coming in basically even to both of them. I guess if you forced me to pick one, I would pick Bowers. I think he's more talented. But I guess between the two of them, the only real question I have is we do have like a decent amount of 2,500, like 3K options that we could use on this slate. So it becomes like a roster construction thing. It's not really just like, can Bowers absolutely decimate the tight end position and you need someone else? Or you don't, like, he's the guy you need. Because of all the other value options on the slate and other studs, it kind of is a tricky roster construction where I don't really want to come in overweight to anyone who's just, I guess, one of the studs on the slate entirely, because there's just so many roster constructions you can use.
Yeah, at the same time, like, I feel weirdly confident. I feel weirdly confident about Brock Bowers just being somebody that I want to get tons of. And I think Arizona, we're seeing Kyler Murray get a lot of this ownership. I think Kyler plus Trey McBride is going to be a little bit overowned relative to what I want. I can play Brock Bowers all by himself here against the Chargers and be just fine with my life. I think he gets a little bit of the bump for me over Trey McBride, but I'm going to have a lot of both of them. I think it's a decent enough 2 tight end slate. Is there going to be any George Kittle in your life? This is probably the one guy, considering Dobbs is popular. It's like, well, of course, George Kittle caught 2 touchdowns at the goal line. They just force feed him like they did Trey McBride last week, but it's not showing up really in the projections. Is there any reason that you would want to get onto some George Kittle in a meaningless game?
I don't think so. He's coming out like we weren't even sure he was going to play.
Yeah, I'm shocked he's playing, actually.
So am I. So I think because of that, I'm a little hesitant. Is there anything different with you?
Nope. Thank you for asking, though. That was very nice of you.
You're welcome.
Zach Ertz is pulling a lot of ownership. 4K for Zach Ertz here. He has so many contract incentives that it's just like, what are we even doing here? Like, Washington wants to play this game straight up. They're going to play it straight up. Zach Ertz is a fine option just because he's at 4K. I like Kyle Pitts for tournaments. I hate myself that I like Kyle Pitts in tournaments, but it just kind of is what it is. And then we'll get to the sub 4K guys here, where I think we have tons to rotate through, whether it's Austin Hooper now, New England, no Hunter Henry. We'll get into all of that. Payne Durham, again, who's pulling no ownership today, which is kind of interesting. But 4K Zach Ertz, he is very chalky.
Yeah, incentives aside, he's a pretty good play just because he's so involved in the offense. And his incentives aren't exactly like easy to reach. He's got some weird like ladder stuff in his contract. I don't know how he possibly got that structure off, but yeah, I think he's usable just based on his current role, assuming they're going to play it at full go, which it looks like they're going to. So he's interesting in this range. It's really just kind of just paying all the way down that interests me more than this like mid, like you could, if you're playing Penix, I could see getting some Kyle Pitts, but man, he's just so bad. I'd rather punt it off.
Chat's having fun today.
I haven't looked at chat once.
Imagine what they're talking about.
Probably me and you fighting.
Now, why do we fight, Matt? Why is it that you and I fight from time to time?
I would say it's largely entertainment. What would you say?
It's entertainment. Yeah, I'm having so much fun.
You and I get along very well in person. None of this is
Peyton Hendershot. We should talk about Peyton Hendershot. He's 2,500. Okay, he's 2,500, and I just want you to talk to the people about Peyton Hendershot, where he's from, what his life is about, and his goals and achievements that he's looking for in life. Thank you, Jordan Klein.
He's from Indiana. I don't know if he aspires to be anything more than a tight end 3 when his football playing days are over. But he should be on the field. Did he play with
Michael Penix back in the day?
I don't know if they must have overlapped.
Well, I mean, I just think Michael Penix, because he was there in Indy for like ever and then has the one good season.
But he only actually played 1 year, really. He got hurt every other year.
Yeah, he did. He has like a completely reconstructed knee. It is what it is. Peyton Hendershot, though, 2,500. Is he your cash game tight end? I think you would definitely be in play for it.
Yeah, it's a roster construction thing. I wouldn't say I'm locking in like Bowers or McBride. I think you can play the Hendershot route, but I do think I prefer paying up.
Okay. We've got.
What about you?
I probably would be looking at getting to Austin Hooper if I could. I feel much better.
Really?
If the $800 matters, sweet. Austin Hooper, man. You don't like Austin Hooper today?
No, I do. Just I thought we were talking cash.
I think Austin Hooper's a better cash play unless you need the money.
I could be talked into it. I don't have a strong opinion here. I'm a little surprised to hear it, but it's not crazy.
Yeah, it's more like it's like people were looking for the 2,500 guy because they knew one would be there, and they just clung on to Hendershot, and now he's going to be like double-digit owned and steamed up for no reason, and he's going to catch 2 or 3 balls, and that's going to be it. But I do think Hendershot is nice for the full slate. I think in the afternoon slate, I'm going to be drastically underweight to Hendershot. I think he'll end up being extremely, extremely chalky, and I'm happy to kind of get away from it. I think that's kind of it here. Payne Durham, I'm surprised to not see any ownership going his direction at 3,200. He's been the fill-in. Obviously, he's not K. Dotton, but Payne Durham is going to be out there for Tampa Bay team that obviously likes to throw the ball all the way across the field. all the live long day there. Baker Mayfield out there slinging. I think Payne Durham definitely somebody to get to a little bit of. Is there anybody way off the radar that you want to be mixing into your tournament lineups down here for cheap, though?
Way off the radar? I don't think so. The craziest one I have any exposure to is Jaheim Bell for New England.
I don't know who that is.
He was a Florida State tight. He's actually a really cool player. Had a lot of carries and stuff in college. But anyway, yeah, I think you can mix in some of these guys, but it's pretty thin. Like Quentin Morris, the presumed lead tight end in Buffalo. Like all of this is just super uncertain. And in the portfolio, there's sprinklings. Couple percent here, couple percent there. Most of it is soaked up by Hendershot, McBride, Hooper, and Bowers, and Ertz for me. And the rest, like we're talking 5% and under. But there are a couple names like that. Morris, Bell. Otherwise, like there are other names you know too, like Durham, Kittle, Fant, Pitts. Most of them correlated. It's pretty gross down here.
Yeah, I've got a little Quentin Morris as well. Mitchell Trubisky, hopefully just drop off central to Quentin Morris. We saw that yesterday with Jordan Akins. I would be ecstatic to run into whatever Jordan Akins did on the full slate. That would be lovely. But Quentin Morris, I think somebody that at 2,500, I'm going to have a little bit of here as well. Well, actually, no, I know that I do because I have 10% of it, and it is going to lock when 4 minutes from now. Let's talk about defense here for the people, your favorite conversation piece. You could play so many of them, but obviously I think looking at the Broncos going up against Kansas City's backups, that's interesting. I think they'll end up being pretty chalky here. We've got them around 10.5% owned. We got the Seahawks and Bucs pulling the most ownership. I think the Bucs, definitely my favorite. We haven't seen any semblance of quarterback play. There's not a single skill position player worth anything out there for New Orleans today. Bucs at 3,600 in the game they want to win look just exceptional. What stands out to you at defense?
I think really any defense against a backup quarterback is in play. First of all, I think you can punt it all the way down and play defenses like the Jets, the Patriots, the Giants if you want. They're all playing backups and they all make some sense. If you need the salary, I think you can go down there. If you have all the salary in the world, I do think far and away the Buccaneers are the safest defense. They also come with a huge price tag, but you're playing the JV New Orleans Saints. From there, I think the Seahawks are probably my second favorite. We do know that the Rams are basically just entirely phoning in the game. They do this every preseason game. I'm not sure on the third one. I could be talked into a number of different directions, but I honestly think I might prefer just going all the way down to a team like the Giants.
Yep, the Giants are definitely going to be up there for me when it's all said and done here. I've got 26% of them. They're my highest owned defense. Then I'm pretty spread out amongst the Bucs, amongst the Broncos, amongst the Chargers, just a number of different spots that I'm looking at there, and feel pretty comfortable being flat at defense outside of just absorbing 2,400 so that I can spend up for those wide receivers that I think really, really matter. We talked about the Hendershot thing. Again, it makes sense in the context of this slate where tight end, if you don't get those crazy ceilings from Bowers and McBride, you're probably just looking for double digits from Hendershot, and you're probably in a really good situation. So defense, that kind of rounds it out. Let's give the people 102 tutties today. 102 tutties. Go, Matt.
Oh, man, this is a fun slate for it. How about Will Shipley?
It's beautiful, actually. Will Shipley, you're disgusting. Did I end up on Shipley when it's all said and done? Oh, no, I will not pick a chalk. You know what? Here's who I'm going to go with. You ready for this one? Isaac Garundo. I mean, Isaac Garundo is just... he's my boy. He's my boy today. Isaac Garundo is going to take us to the promised land, win us all the money. Happy to play him with Dobbs, without Dobbs. Just get to Isaac Garundo. Looks incredible in my opinion. He's also an athletic freak. I've really enjoyed watching him. But hopefully you've really enjoyed watching this program here today as well. He's Matt_Gajeski over on X. Probably the nicest guy that I work with here at Stokastic. Definitely a heartfelt entire messaging throughout the entire show. Always there in my corner fighting for me every step of the way. Any final words for the people as we get out of here?
Thank you if you dealt with me and Eric and our nonsense for the entire hour and 15 minutes or so we were on here. We do appreciate you very much. It's a pleasure being able to do the show for you every single week. And you guys truly are the engine that makes it run. So thank you for all being here. All jokes aside, which everything with me and Eric is a joke. We do appreciate you very much.
No, it was an absolute blast. Always a nice treat to talk through a week 18 slate, which Yeah, it's a fun one. Obviously, there's a lot of moving parts. We're going to have some unknowns that pop up. Make sure you're paying attention to actives in the afternoon window, and you are searching for a little extra value because it will definitely be there, friends. Let's get out of here and go watch a little football. Skol in the evening window. By the way, if you're playing FanDuel, just play a ton of that game. It just looks incredible, as it should. 57 total. Hi, how are you this fine day? Thank you, Jordan Klein. Except for when you pulled up the Eric is Tinkerbell. I did not appreciate that. Let's get out of here. I'm Eric Lindquist. Best of luck in the NFL streets here today. And check out NFL Live Before Lock, Showdown with EMAC, Matt Bellman, coming up tonight.